Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Macon-Bibb County Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Tuesday, February the 14th, and I hope you see a lot of pink and red around here. Today is Valentine's Day, and especially the ladies on the commission, we'd like to wish you a very happy Valentine's Day. We hope that your significant other takes good care of you, and you should have some items on your desk today as well from on behalf of the commission and your clerk and the mayor's office. And thank you, Miss Valerie Wynn, for passing around some sweets that I can't have today, but we appreciate you doing your part to make sure that Valentine's Day is special for all of us. So we would like to officially call this meeting to order. We have a busy agenda today. I do want to outline some things for you. We have a presentation near the beginning of our meeting. Presentation will take as long as it needs to take. This is on the cameras, presentation of the camera systems that we're discussing today. And you have all the information that's previously been sent to you. We have a representative from the company here and also online that will be prepared to answer any questions, but also do some demonstrations for you on there. And we also have our roads today. We have our own in-house engineers and staff to discuss the roads, and a presentation that we'll have for you just on the amounts of money and the plan that we believe is going to take care of getting a lot more roads done in a significantly shorter time. We do have several lights that will be considered for approval. All these lights are street light requests. I will ask when we get to that point. I don't mind reading the name of each one of those ahead of time, but if we could pass those in blank since they're all in favor of approval at that time. So we want to go ahead and get started with our meeting. Prior to starting our meeting today, we do have one of our members or staff of the communications team. I saw her walk in, Miss Rachel Cunningham. Today will be her last full meeting with us, and we just want to let her know that we love and appreciate her. We're going to wish her well in her new venture. And at this time, I'd ask her to come down front, if you don't mind, for a special presentation. So we want to make sure there's some pictures on the screen of a lot of the things that you've been doing over the last several years. So we certainly appreciate you. We wish you well on behalf of the mayor, the commissioners, and all of our wonderful staff, and especially our communications team. We're going to miss you. We always wish people well when they leave on good terms and they look to kind of have some upward mobility. We know you're going to do a great job, and it's just going to be our loss in their game. So we love you. Happy Valentine's Day. Rachel, your husband better take care of you. We know what he looks like, and we'll come find him. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All righty. At this time, I'll have to move to item 1A, which is the approval of the minutes, and that's from the January 10th, 2023 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve? A motion by Commissioner Wynn. I get a second by Commissioner Tillman. Mr. Tillman, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda next week. As previously mentioned, we do have a presentation on the camera system that we've been discussing, and there's been some information on the media, but we wanted to make sure, as you noticed, that we didn't have any comment to the media in the last couple of days, any specifics. We want to make sure that you receive this presentation first, and we're going to have them come forth in just a moment to present. There will be some things on your screens. It should be a PowerPoint, and then we'll have some interactive demonstrations shortly after that. When we get to our interaction part, it will be communicated online with the person that will be running that demonstration. We'll ask you to give those questions to us that you may have at that time, and we'll convey those to Mr. Ford and his team to make sure they get answered by the person here. So this time we'll call the presentation in order.
Good morning, Commissioners. Happy Valentine's Day, and I would like to be on record that I begged to be on the agenda so I could serenade you but the mayor said no.
Nope.
So,
It'll be a very short meeting.
all right. But again, good morning, and we would like to present you with some information as it relates to our public safety efforts. And so with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Matt Strohmeyer to lead the presentation at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. Good morning, Mayor Miller and Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us here today. My name is Matt Strohmeyer. I'm with LBF Consulting Group. And then we'll have Evan Sandler joining us from the manufacturer of Verkada. Let me just make sure we're good to go here. Where do I need to be pointing that? Okay, perfect. Well, the first thing I wanted to talk to you about real quick, we're just the
Before you
partners.
start, just 1 second. We've got a no signal here. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. I'm not sure about people at home. Looks like it may be coming back up. A green screen now. May have to get you a singer after all. We got here extra early this morning because we know how technology can be at times to make sure everything worked, and everything worked just fine. But we'll do whatever we need to do in just a moment. We have the information I know on the screen. We'll wait for a moment to come back up. If not, we'll turn the monitors around so the commissioners can see it. But I'm been assured that everyone at home is able to see it right now.
It's on the broadcast.
Okay. So Matt, you can go ahead and start. We'll go ahead and let you begin.
Okay. Are you going to leave one of these kind of facing so I can see? Okay. Do you want me to turn it a little bit so y'all can see? Perfect. Well, thank you guys. My name is Matt Strohmeyer. I'm with LBF Consulting Group. What our company does is we meet with clients, we help assess their needs, and then we help find the right technology for them and the right integrator, the right company who can help plug it in and make it all happen. So we were involved early on in the process here, and then we brought a few other partners in that we thought would be a good fit. And after assessing them, that's who we're coming in with today. So the first company here that we're working with is Adaptasolve. Adaptasolve has been in business since 2005. They're headquartered here in LaGrange, Georgia, and they have 8 offices around the state. They work mostly with state, local, and education clients, so work with a lot of municipalities, and they are a Georgia state contractor vendor. Adaptasolve, one of the biggest things that really differentiates them is they care a lot about their clients. They always seem to do the right thing for them, and they also offer a longer warranty than anyone else in the business with a 3-year workmanship warranty. Any questions on Adaptasolve? Okay. So let's see if that worked. There we go. Adaptasolve was also awarded the Verkada, who is the manufacturer that we're bringing in today, They're Partner of the East in 2021. So out of about 2,000 partners around the Eastern Seaboard, they were the #1 partner. So very esteemed award here, and really just a great tribute to Adapt-to-Solve from Verkada. As far as Verkada goes, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with physical security with cameras in particular, but Verkada really changed the game. For a long, long time, camera systems were set up where you had NVRs, which is the viewing station, servers, and storage, and they kind of disrupted the market, very much like Uber did to the taxi industry. And they came out with a new model which had the actual storage on the actual device on the camera, eliminating the need for that NVR, DVR, servers, and storage, and really kind of taking taking cameras off of IT's plate and allowing law enforcement and others to be in charge of the camera system without too much support. Also just have a great product warranty. By leveraging the technology and moving it in this direction, they were able to extend a much longer warranty on their products. So they have a 10-year manufacturer warranty where if anything was to go wrong with the camera, it's as simple as them shipping a camera overnight to you, and then we'd plug it in for you. Any questions on Verkada? Okay. Next slide here is just, I wanted to give you an idea of who all is using Verkada around Georgia. In the last 6 years, you can see a lot of cities, housing authorities here. Macon Housing Authority was an early integrator of Verkada. They've been using them now for a little over a year. But City of Columbus would be another local city that is using Verkada. They've recently just moved into phase 2 of their project, and they'll have about 2,000 cameras when it's completely rolled out. Another local one here is Fort Valley State University, and as of today, they're probably the largest deployment of Verkada cameras here in Georgia, with over 600 cameras deployed today. Overview of products. I wanted to just give you a quick look so you could see what the products look like. The first one here is the CH52. This is the camera that we'd be proposing for the downtown area and throughout the parks. The Bullet series, this is another camera. This kind of gives you a long-range zoom into certain areas. It also has LPR capabilities. The standard Dome series, so this is the Dome camera. And then a fisheye camera, which gives you a 180-degree view. As far as the licensing goes, this is also a big differentiator between Verkada and the standard camera systems. It really just comes down to 2 line items. It comes down to the actual hardware, the physical device, the camera, and then a software license. What we're talking about today is a 10-year software license to match the 10-year hardware warranty. So there's nothing out of pocket for 10 years once these cameras are installed. There's also no ongoing maintenance costs, no software updates. Firmware updates are all included in that price. Very much like your iPhone today, if you have an update and it goes out, it automatically happens without you having to do anything, say except accept it. So these cameras are kind of future-proofing. Kind of in the old days when you bought a surveillance camera or bought a camera, it was only as good as that day and then kind of regressed from there. With this new model, it's able to push out new analytics, new updates, and the cameras get better with time. The other interesting part too is it's unlimited users. So in the past, you'd only be able to use a certain amount of people could be on a system at a time. And with this architecture, you have unlimited users and unlimited cloud archiving. Do you guys have a question?
No, I'm going to get, Ms. Ross is going to go ahead and email this while we're here.
Okay.
Email all the PowerPoint to all the commissioners to make sure that they've got a copy of it.
Okay.
And I think we may have one question. Commissioner Watkins got a question about the material he's presented already?
Yeah, since you asked, I just wanted to reemphasize what I was just writing down. The cost is a one-time cost, unlimited users, unlimited cloud storage, one-time cost, and that's good for 10 years.
Correct. 10 years.
Yes, sir. That's the program we discussed
All right,
with him.
keep going. I
Okay.
just make sure I wrote it right.
Commissioner Jones also had a question. Commissioner Jones?
Yes, sir. On You said it has a 10-year warranty on the software and the camera itself,
Yes, sir.
right? So what if it goes bad after 9 years? What
You would
happens?
get the latest camera would be shipped out to you.
Pardon me?
The latest and greatest camera would be shipped out to you the next day.
Okay, so there's no proration, you just ship us a new one.
Correct. Yeah, it's a one-to-one swap.
And
so-
on average, how long do they last?
Oh gosh, I'm more than 10 years. I mean, they're warrantying it for 10. So
10 and a half?
no, I would think you're going to get 15 plus years out of them.
And how warranties
But they
are
are
these days?
warranted for 10.
Many products seem to run out right about the time the warranty runs out.
Sure, that way they keep you buying more, right? No, I've experienced the warranty a few times. Fort Valley was our first client here in the state of Georgia, and they've had cameras since 2016, and they've only had 1 or 2 cameras returned out of 600 plus
So
cameras.
if it goes out 9.5 months, you just send us a new camera.
Correct. Even if the model you have is discontinued, they would send you the newest model.
No
So-
installation fees or anything like that? You
No,
just-
so once they're installed, it's just a Cat 5 cable going up to it. So it's 4 screws, unplug the old one, unscrew the other one, plug it in, and just pop it right back up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Commissioner Wynn.
Yes, sir, thank you. I saw that your presentation had replacements, no questions asked. So if someone destroyed it, say shot it down or something like that, you would replace it?
So no, if it's an act of God or something like that, it would not be, or if somebody shoots it, it would not be replaced at that point.
So if lightning damages it, it won't be replaced automatically? That's
Yeah,
it.
that's technically the way it works. We have seen with some of our clients where if it does get hit by lightning, that if they send it back, it is replaced. But technically on paper, it says, that if it was an act of God, that it would not be replaced.
So what did your presentation say? It said no
Let me go
questions
back.
asked. What was
Let's see
about
where
that.
it is.
about replacements? For their,
I think
don't
those are
see it.
maintenance and not third-party
is that
issues.
maintenance?
Yeah,
Is that
is it?
just
I don't see
maintenance?
it on there. Yeah, it's the maintenance. So the maintenance, I'm sorry, I know what you're talking about. So Adapt-A-Solve is the company integrator, and
sorry,
they
yeah.
include 3 years of no questions asked.
Okay.
So, for example, we've had cameras go out at Macon Housing, and there's an example that I was going to pull up, but Miss Cheryl sent an email over in about 15 minutes. They responded. Within 4 hours, they were on site. The one camera did go bad. The camera was there the next day, and they replaced it, and they had no cost out of pocket for that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Okay. As far as the deployment goes, I wanted to show y'all where the proposed cameras would be going. So this is the downtown deployment here. And this is that multi-sensor camera, so it has kind of 4 cameras built into one. So for each location. And then we added a couple more on the extension here. And then this is the Riverwalk. And then the last was the park. Any questions on the deployment or locations? Yes, sir.
Commissioner Watkins.
So how many cameras are included in the deployment?
I have to pull up the exact number by location. I know it was 30, I believe it's 34 downtown. Let's see here, 8 at the Riverwalk. There we go.
36 downtown, 8 at the Riverwalk, and
Is it 18? My quick math?
20.
20.
20 at the park.
Say 20, which part?
Carolyn Creighton Park. So 36 downtown, 8 along the Riverwalk from basically Rose Hill to MLK, and then the additional ones would be at the Carolyn Creighton Park.
Correct.
And just some thoughts, just for commissioners that we're thinking on this here, is that most of these cameras look at people and automobiles that are usually set but can be moving. But we looking for places where we have a large accumulation of people, and typically, as you may have heard, the sheriff will be coming to us soon on the Fox system. We've been working on that with the sheriff's office for several months. That system will work well with this system here, and let you know that Sheriff has been working with us on this process the entire amount. Centel Smith, Sergeant Smith from his office, who's our lead crime analyst, has been working in these placements, been riding around with the companies looking at the areas that they would go into to make sure that all the areas are covered. For instance, during downtown, just during the Christmas lights, pleased to announce that we had 790,000 people visit Macon for the Christmas lights this year. That's a lot of people in a small area. And we have the Carolyn Creighton Park, as we have hundreds of thousands of people that will be here over the year for the Cherry Blossom Festival and other festivals that we have. This gives us a chance to get into the area as well. And then along the Riverwalk too, we've had some challenges there with some aggressive behaviors and things on there. We want to make sure people understand that it's safe, and we need to protect that as well. We have the railroad there that had some issues, but we just need to monitor that, not just criminal activity, but you could have some things like flooding that goes on. We can look at those areas along there to make sure that we can close those areas of the trail, or you may have some storm damage that you may be able to look at there too. So it kind of all fits on this package. And they're also working hopefully with some local installers. So a lot of these contracts that there'll be installation will be done by local workers as well. So that kind of gives you the idea of why we wanted to start here in this area here, because this is a perfect situation when you have large groups of people in pretty much business districts. These cameras are not going into residential neighborhoods where people can have some issues of violating their privacy. There's no reasonable expectation of privacy when you're walking down a public street, or that you're in a park, or that you're along the Riverwalk. And the Columbus has used these really well too, and we've been communicating with them. So just give you a little feedback on that. Commissioner Jones?
Where are the monitors? How many monitors, and where are they located where whoever's looking at what's going on?
So it's a cloud-based system, so it's password protected, and then that would be a decision of Mayor Miller and then law enforcement who would have access to those cameras. But it can be monitored. We can pull it up right from your phone.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wynn?
Yes, sir. How fine are the images? Facial images, car tags, things like that. You have sometimes the news will show you somebody's face and said, if you know this person, let us know. But the image is not clear.
If you could hold that question, do we do a demonstration? I think that'll clear that up for you. We're going to do an actual
We're going to
demonstration.
show it to you in just a
Alright.
couple of minutes.
Okay.
Commissioner Tillman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I think some of these camera systems are just like ones that you install at home. Nobody's actually monitoring them, and nobody has time to just constantly be watching their phone. I think what's most important, if we had a designated person paying attention like they do in some of the other larger cities, I don't see the benefit of this besides just watching and paying attention to citizens. I'm strictly opposed to the ones that would be going down to Carolyn Creighton. There's nobody standing in front of us to show the data of how much these cameras have deterred crime. And because of this, I saw a presentation probably about a year and a half ago where the sheriff actually showed us cameras that was at a location in a store that they were able to use to show criminal activity happening, where they were able to dispatch officers because they were actually monitoring the cameras. I mean, just to spend this amount of money on cameras, I mean, I'm not going to stand in the way of it, but I just don't see the purpose of it. It's no different from anybody that has cameras sitting at the house. If you're busy and doing something, nobody's sitting there monitoring these things. It's just, another way to, I guess, feel good about ourselves to say we got some cameras and infringe and impose on people's privacy. That's what I see.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman. Just let me add a couple of things and on the intention here. First of all, if you're the victim whose car got broken into, I think you appreciate the fact that the perpetrator is on camera, and you can later find that person and hold them accountable and make sure it doesn't happen to someone else, or the person who may have a business downtown where somebody throws a brick through the night before and you don't realize who it is, or many circumstances there. We have people that watch the cameras. It's not going to be their full-time job to be watching every single second on there, but you do collect the data, and they do collect resources. If you have an instance, which we've had a couple instances where this would have easily solved the situation, and the perpetrators are still out there. I can think of the Walmart case over that the sheriff mentioned. One reason for the flock cameras is we knew there's a black car and we knew what the person was wearing, that this would have took care of that situation and that person would have been handed. I want to keep going through example after example, but the potential that you'll see, actually he's going to show you some stats that where crime has been decreased in our own community at a location where these cameras were installed as far as gun violence is concerned. And with the Macon Housing Authority, I see Mike Austin here today. Thank you for being here, Mike. They use this camera. I'm sure he can vouch for it, but after the installation of these cameras together with what we've been doing, gun violence had decreased in those. But I think once we go through the presentation, you see what it offers. You can see how it's not just a false sense of security. It helps you deter crime at the same time, and it's going to help us solve some issues, and people will actually be safe. So
Yeah.
we'll move on along with the next question from Commissioner Watkins, and then we'll go to. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, on the follow-up, I don't doubt that if people know and see cameras are available, sometimes it's a deterrent. There are a number of folks whose homes and cars are broken into every day, every night, that have cameras, clear cameras, that law enforcement have yet to catch. They're right in your face, they're clear shots. And so that's not the issue of the deterrent. Yeah, it's fine. If we're gonna sell it and say, we're doing it because we want to deter and we want to make it visible. Most of the times, folks don't know cameras are available. And so I would like to see us just go ahead and put it out there. Stop trying to hide them. Just say the cameras are visible and available, and just put the sign up. Cameras are watching you or what have you. You know, that can deter crime as well. Especially, I think it's a little bit different when you're talking about a housing project and so forth, where a lot of folks congregate. I think you need cameras in that situation, stores and so forth, but just randomly throughout a community, just on poles and everything that people just don't know. Lovers Lane down at Carolyn Creighton,
Well, don't go there anymore.
I just don't see that.
Unless you want to be seen. But also vandalism happens. We have some other activities that happen that needs to be deterred. And I understand what you're saying, Commissioner, but the difference between my home picking you up on camera when you snuck in the middle of the night is I can't link that up with another system to find out where you actually ended up at and who you are. And these systems can do that. But these are not secret cameras. We're having an open public meeting, and everybody at home is seeing where we're putting these things at. We want people to know. We want them to be deterred. And I think you'll see some other wonderful things that can happen with the cameras as we move on. We talk about litter all the time, and maybe it's just as simple as we now see where litter's being dumped onto the grounds at because we see a pattern because you can watch it, time and time. We tried to put out some cameras early on to catch folks that throwing litter, but we couldn't have anybody that responded to the RFP because it's not very profitable. This is another byproduct of that you can actually see if someone's littering or somebody's been parked in a handicapped parking space for a period of time, or parked on the sidewalk, or has an illegal food operation going on. There's all kind of things we can see. Commissioner Watkins?
Yeah, it's very interesting, I guess, conversation on the use of technology. Stuff starting to move so fast. And what is my expectation of rights to shoot not only privacy, it's a lot to take in, so I can understand Commissioner Tillman's and others' concerns. Like as y'all talk about it, I grow a little bit more scared of Big Brother in the police state. That's a lot of power that we're able to wield. So and I guess a couple of things along that line. What are the application? I assume the sheriff's office, like the cost is one thing, and I'm interested in that. We're talking about $10,000 a camera, and I'm assuming like you said, the $700 is just a one-time cost.
Correct. That's correct.
But what goes into the proper management or effective management of a system like this annually? Some, like you say, is more effective. I can definitely understand and have a sentiment towards, in the absence of us having the cops on the ground or the size of force that we desire, using the technology is a more than decent substitute. But what does it take when you talk about Fort Valley and other places? What are they spending each year to actually be effective in using this stuff?
not going to answer.
And what does that
Yeah.
look like? What does it like?
Yeah.
Like I say,
I don't
is,
wanna answer
do we
Fort
need to
Valley's,
build
but-
out? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't. I
Just
couldn't
want to tell you what we
it's
did
really
last
just
year.
man hours more than anything. And I can tell you, I've worked with law enforcement most of my career selling AFIS systems, and real-time crime centers and stuff like that that are more proactive you're seeing those more and more in every city around the country. And the neat thing about Verkada is it allows you to, it recognizes images, but there's no personal identifying information about any individuals in the software. So it's not really like a Big Brother. They wouldn't be a California company. California would never let that happen, right? But it's all it's saying is it's this face. It's not saying this is Matt Strohmeyer.
Say it again.
So if it sees the face, it's just saying I see this face. It's not identifying me as Matt Strohmeyer. That would have to be done by some kind of expert, right?
Yeah, you'll see that in the demonstration. But look, I just want to just refresh the memory for the commissioners. Last year in our budget, we added 2 positions for the sheriff just for these types of purposes. 2 criminal analysts that we added to our budget last year that works together with Sergeant Smith to make sure that they do the training. This is going to be completely run by the sheriff's department. Yes, we have access to it. If we have some need for another department to access something, Parks and Beautification needs to access something, they can allow them access just for a small period of time to look at the river. Or if we have 10 cars that were left overnight blocking the street somewhere, even the code enforcement could be allowed access. But this is completely driven by the sheriff's department. We've been working hand in hand with the sheriff's department. They selected where these cameras were going to be going, and we have looked at other opportunities for expansion of this. But these are all public places. These are all places that there is no reasonable expectation of privacy, if you want to use the legal term, in public spaces. You're already, when you go to Savannah and have a good time down there during your training that you have for commissioners, when you're walking on those streets and going to those places, you've been on camera every time. But guess what? You're not doing anything wrong, so you have nothing to worry about. But you've been on there. Everywhere you go in Atlanta and you go to any kind of sporting event or concert, you've been on camera the whole time. It's not only a deterrent, but it's also a perfection of the record in case something were to happen. And I think you'll see that during the demonstrations we have in just a moment.
What is the you mentioned the flop system? That was the first time I don't know, maybe others were familiar with it. It was the first time I'd heard that phrase.
Yes, sir. The flock system is probably one of the #1 system for public safety that's mostly dealing with moving and traveling automobiles that take pictures. The sheriff has applied for a grant, and I'm not trying to get ahead of the sheriff, but he and I have had this conversation. He's applied for a grant for that system because they are a little bit expensive. But if he doesn't get the grant, then he's going to come to the commission for funding on that, and we will make sure that he has every tool that he needs. But that system will pick up automobile travel. If you have an incident where there's an alert that some shooting or something happened, and someone says, all I know is I saw a red Hyundai leave the scene. I don't know who was in it, blah, blah, blah. So that they will put the red Hyundai uploaded into the system, and they'll pick up every red automobile similar to that in the county and where it happened. Perfect example, I know for a fact that Warner Robins has a Fox system. They had a shooting at a apartment complex, maybe Tanglewood, something there, 50 shots were fired. I had no idea who did it, no leads. But they looked at their Fox system. They saw a car without any lights on in the area through the Fox system. Were able to trace that to an entirely different apartment complex across town. They saw that automobile go there. The police went there, found 5 people there with the weapons there from that. Never would have probably saw that, certainly not that quick. They had no leads to go on, but that camera was able to pick up that automobile through multiple systems going throughout their county. The sheriff just got back from a conference in Atlanta. A lot of the sheriffs there are using this. This is the best new technology that you can have. Certainly, it's going to help us in response time to allow officers to do other things. But the Fox system works well with this system. This is one of the ones that Centel Smith brought to us and saw that it would complement a large public space and having the Fox cameras throughout the counties. Even some neighborhoods that have had issues with car break-ins or people going through the area could have these installed outside their areas to pick up, in case they had a break-in, they could go back and review the footage to see which cars came in and out. That's completely run by the sheriff. That's a separate than these cameras here, but I just want to let you know they work well together, and that's what they are. We'll go ahead and move on.
Okay. This was just the pricing breakdown. I believe y'all had seen this before.
paying it all at once.
Paying it up front, correct,
All right.
for the next 10 years.
Yeah, this is an upfront cost for, and there's no other fees at all for 10 years.
Correct.
And at the end of the 10 years, which is a long time, do we own the system, or is that, are we
Yeah,
leasing it, or we own it?
You would just need to renew licensing at that point if you want to continue with the system. So you could buy another, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, or 10-year license.
I'm right to say that I'm understanding you correctly. It includes the installation and the full.
Correct. Yep, turnkey.
All right.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Watts. Okay, may
Then
proceed.
the last two slides here, this was just a quick recap. That LBF, ATS, and Mercado have worked around the state of Georgia with all those that we listed earlier. With the proposal, you're paying for the hardware, licensing, and support, and a 10-year warranty on that. And that Adapasolve is going to include the 3 years of workmanship warranty. And then the last two slides here, we're going to just feature a local success story, which was Macon Housing Authority. And you're more than welcome to speak to it, or I can. Sorry to put you on the spot. I realize you'd be here.
Mike don't mind speaking.
I vouch for it. In our case, really, it's three things: deterrence, and it's really great for the residents. They feel a lot better about it here in Macon. The citizens would feel great about it. And then when something does happen, it allows us to with the sheriff's help, of course, to track folks down. So at our sites, it's been a huge deterrent, and we've noticed a huge decrease in activity that we don't want. So.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I can tell
Appreciate it,
you,
Mike.
I can give you a perfect example with the Macon Housing Authority. We had an incident where no one even reported shots being fired at a housing location. No 911 calls, nothing. Shot spotters picked up on that call, and itself, because of the shots being fired, alerted the police, and they contacted Macon Housing Authority cameras. So nobody reported 911, shots were fired, and we had a system that picked up the shots, and we had a camera that was able to see who the perpetrator was. So just something that simple that never would have been reported or arrested, we were able to get some substantial leads from that. And we're looking forward to watching that move through the process in the courts. But those are just quick examples that we have where these systems work together. I've been speaking to the school systems. As much as you know, school systems need to have these types of cameras in their schools, because you can map out an active shooter situation where the police can actually look at the diagram of the school and look at the cameras to see where the person would be at. That's why you see a lot of schools having those in their areas. But also those cameras will allow them to link up with systems that we have, because believe it or not, when a lot of crimes are committed in some neighborhoods, the first thing they do is they either park their car at the school or they run through the schoolyard. And we need to have access to those cameras as well. So this is more than about just this one particular location. This is about mapping out an entire plan to make sure that our community uses the technology that we need to use to catch up with the rest of the world. And this is what we're trying to do, is get ahead of the curve. So I think this is the last slide you had on this, and you're going to move on to the demonstration, or you have another one?
Yes, sir. And just so you know, there were some references here too that y'all could call on and see how the technologies work for them as well.
I think Commissioner Lucas had a question that I didn't get to, so let me get her.
Switching it
Yeah, my question is, this particular camera, what makes it just so much more special than others? Surely there have to be others
Sure.
that are like this, that function.
Absolutely.
But what makes the difference, and why should we as a community embrace that camera as opposed to a Best Buy camera?
I gotcha. It's really the technology and the model, right? So, for years and years, cameras did the exact same thing, and this system's going to allow you to get rid of all the IT infrastructure that you've needed in the past, so you don't have to buy that anymore. And it's going to future-proof itself. It's going to be able to push out new analytics and new features and functionality to these cameras throughout the 10 years that you own this system. So, for example, Fort Valley bought the system in 2016, and at the time, those people analytics that we spoke about were not part of the system yet. but when those analytics pushed out, they were able to leverage that technology. So you're investing in a system that's going to get better over time. That's not going to, it's not just the best it is on the day you buy it. It's going to actually get better and better as you own the software and the hardware, the cameras. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Did we look at other companies?
We looked for what we believe, well, I'll say the sheriff's department has been driving this train, but they looked through all the companies that they believe was the top companies. This cloud-based certainly caught their eye. The fact that it works well with the flock system that they're getting certainly is one that they wanted. And when you look at the leaders as far as the top ranked in the United States, especially in the Southeast mostly, this company was the person that did that. They're also on state contract, which tells us that we're getting the best price, and we've used it locally with our Macon Housing Authority and Fort Valley State. And both of them gave Raven, reviews of this particular item.
So they are on the state contract, which means they've looked, what you said,
They've been vetted.
they've looked at it and they're looking at the cost as well as effectiveness.
That's correct. And Adaptasolve sells all camera systems, almost every single one that's on the market. And after listening to your needs and really analyzing what would be best for the city, we recommended Verkada. But we assessed all the other cameras that we could put in here.
And we've also spoken, Commissioner Lucas, with similarly situated counties, Muskogee County, Columbus. I've had several meetings with their mayor, their departments there to, kind of check their references to make sure that it's something they've been satisfied with, think they got the bang for the buck on their money, has it helped them in areas they needed, and at the same time they were telling me they were expanding their program there. So, and I know, not to get ahead of, there's some other places here that are going to be expanding the same program to large areas that they have. So yes, we've done our due diligence. The sheriff has led this effort, and we believe it's the best system. And in fact, it's on state contract is typically gives us an indication to how well they've been checked out, and hence the need not to have to go through the normal procurement process. We have to put a bid out there and get the top three in. We already believe we have the top company involved.
Okay, did you get all of that work, all of those contracts after getting on the state
No, ma'am.
contract?
No, not all of those are Adaptasolve, but those are all Verkada clients. And a lot of those were even before the state contract.
Okay, my last question, the signage. I know there was a mention of the signage, and I kind of think the signs ought to be there. And if they're stupid enough to go ahead and do something, and the cameras are right there,
We'll talk to the sheriff about that.
So-
There's been some conversation about that. We've talked to the sheriff to see what he believes we have. We're going to have an educational program, so people are going to know it. But we're not going to have 100 signs out there saying, "Look up, there's a camera." But I do believe that that people you'll be able to see these things when you walk around and see them. There's not like they're hidden. They're very out there in the public on the poles that we have. But I think occasionally it's different from your other cameras where you have citations and ticketed. You let people know because you're required to do that by law. These situations, I suspect we could have some cameras up, but I'd rather defer to the public safety experts on that.
Okay, I was just thinking that with the signs up, there's the deterrent, but it also, I use the Riverwalk or plan to start back, as I should have a while back. But anyway, that would be comforting to me, and it would increase the use of the Riverwalk.
I do think
as
that
well.
you can put that at the entrance of the Riverwalk and the entrance of Caroline Creighton Park, saying monitor by electronic, those types of things, like a camera at the beginning or something near there to let people know. May not be a bad idea, or somewhere in the park. We don't want to have them at every single
Sure,
place.
and we'll
Oh, I
provide
wasn't
you-
suggesting that. I'm just saying that it will serve two purposes.
Okay.
One is deterrent, and then also as a safety kind of thing. People would feel more confident in using the Riverwalk. I know I would.
Yeah, that's good information.
Thank you.
We have one other question before we move on to the demonstration. Commissioner Watkins.
Yeah, I was thinking about the deployment. How many, like when we talk about the I guess using Central City Park Carolyn Creighton Park as an example. 20 cameras, like how much coverage is that? Is that a lot of blind spots, no blind spots? I can see everybody crisp all the time, or?
It's very good coverage.
Yeah, it's,
One other-
we use the sheriff's department in selecting the locations there, and we feel pretty confident that the entire park is covered.
Another thing to note too, when you're talking about the cameras, the multi-sensor camera actually has 4 cameras built into each unit. So it's a lot more cameras than just the 70 that we're talking about. 'Cause
Okay.
it's, times 4.
And I guess the same with the coverage is very good for all 3 locations? Or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to the demonstration. We have someone online, and make sure he identifies himself, at least to y'all, so you can let us know who
There
we're
he
talking
is.
to on the other line.
Good
He's gonna
morning,
do some-
Evan.
Yeah, he's going to do some demonstrations, and then, like I said, if we can let him get through most of it before you have questions, and then we'll relay those questions so he can either be answered online or here in person. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Are you with Kieran in your
Yes.
just perfect. Great. Perfect. My name is Evan Thandler for Verkada. Thank you very much for having us today. What we're going to do right now is take you through a very brief overview of Verkada system. I'm going to go through the main bells and whistles, but if there's anything anyone would like me to spend some more time on or go back on, please just let us know towards the end of the demo here. We'll just kind of hop into just one slide here before
Hey,
we dive
Evan.
into the demo. I just wanted to bring up this slide here because I noticed this was up in the Q&A. 89% of your classic security systems that are out there on the market today. What we're aiming to steer away from is having to maintain all of this clunky infrastructure on site. So as you can see, just to get from your cameras
Hey,
to
Evan.
your
Excuse me.
monitor, essentially.
Can you hear him? We
Yep.
can't see your
Sorry,
screen.
sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, you're not sharing your screen.
Could you have him also turn off his video monitor and
All right, I don't know
it'll
why it
allow
was-
it to use a
Is
little
that
less
sharing now?
bandwidth?
Yes,
Yes,
you're
sir.
sharing now.
Okay, sorry about that. So what I was saying is this is the architecture behind most of the security systems that are out there on the market today. We're looking to clean this up quite a lot. So as you can see, to get from your cameras to the device you're using to actually monitor that footage, there's a lot of clunky infrastructure that you have to have on site and maintain and upgrade over the years. So from your switches to your NVRs to your local monitors and PCs, etc. With the Verkada system, you'll notice on this next slide here, this is the architecture behind our system. So no more NVRs, DVRs, servers, PCs, anything where you're storing the footage. We're storing all of it on the device itself. Like Matt mentioned, all of our hardware comes with a 10-year product warranty as well as the software. So 9 years, 9.5 years from today, if you're having any issues with any one of your cameras, you just let us know and we'll overnight you a brand new camera, no questions asked. Like Matt said as well, they're essentially plug and play. So Cat 5, Cat 6 cable and you're up and running. On top of the warranty, we also have the automatic software and firmware updates. So these cameras are only going to get smarter over time. And we don't charge for those updates, and you don't have to manually ever worry about them either. So whenever there's a new feature that we're rolling out, we'll automatically push it to your hardware, and it's not something you guys ever have to worry about. You'll just log on one morning, and there'll be additional features there at your disposal. What we're going to do right now is we're going to hop on to Command, which is our web-based browser for actually accessing your camera feeds. Obviously, you have permission figure to actually access. All you need, if you do have those permissions on any device, a laptop, your cell phone, a tablet, your computer, your main desk, like I said, anything with internet access. We go here and just type in Command.
Can you let him know his screen's
Verkada.com.
not sharing again?
You're not sharing again, Evan.
All to do to open up the system.
Give it 1 second.
Okay. Oop, I'm sorry. Let's try that again. Is that working out?
Yeah, you're on the screen.
Okay, perfect. So all I did to get here was go to command.verkada.com. We'll let that load. That's going to open up the home page here. Now, we'll just kind of give you a brief overview. There's a variety of ways you can actually view your cameras. So you can actually just scroll through this home page here. This is completely customizable how we have it set up. I can go through a list view and click into any site. I can also search by sites as well, click into them directly. And then I'd say the map symbol down here is probably my favorite way of actually viewing all your cameras. Now, I'm sitting over here in the West Coast, in the United States. If I want to see something going on maybe in London, it's as easy as a couple clicks. And right now we're looking at a live camera all the way in our London office. So being able to access your cameras anywhere in the world at any time has never been easier. As you can see, a couple clicks here and we're looking at a live camera all the way on the other side of the world. Let's kind of keep it relevant here for today's call. Let's kind of zoom in here to where our headquarters are in Northern California over here. And you'll see we have a few different sites that are set up. You can actually click into any particular site. And you'll notice here all the cameras are lit up in green. So unlike pretty much every other company out there, when the camera actually goes offline, it's going to show up in yellow, and it's going to let you know that that camera's gone offline. The whole thing with Verkada is to be very proactive so that we can actually avoid incidents from occurring in the first place, also providing you with the tools in case something does happen to be reactive. So as you can see here, all cameras are up in green, so they're all active, healthy, live, and recording. The second thing that we do that sets us apart from a lot of our competitors out there is we have accelerometers built directly into each device. So what that means, if someone touches a camera, they try and break it, rip it off the wall, throw a baseball bat at it, tampering it. We're going to notify you in real time that somebody's out there tampering with one of your devices, and we're also going to send you those notifications in real time as well. The last thing we'll do in those situations is automatically save that camera does get destroyed. We've got all the footage of the event actually taking place. From here, we can click into a particular building. We give you the ability to put floor plans, and then get out on the camera, floor plan. In a nutshell, in the event, you can actually share this with first responders to be on any of these links. We integrate with your Active Directory, so it's as easy as just typing in somebody's name and clicking it directly from here, or if somebody that's outside of your organization, typing in their phone number or their email. Now, you can also decide what type of permissions you're giving this individual, as well as how long you want to give them access, whether it's 1 hour, 1 day, or 2 or 3 weeks, for example. You can also go in here and manage these links. So it's important that we know who we're sending it to and where those links are actually going, who's actually opening those clips. And we can also cut those links dead in real time if we need to. What's great about this is if there is a lockdown situation, maybe it's an active shooter type of situation going on, first responders can actually access this floor plan, click in to the cameras to be able to see exactly what's going on and get live looks. We're also tracking for motion here. So there's not a lot of motion going on this first floor. This is back on our headquarters on the West Coast. It's still pretty early there. But as people start gathering into the office, these little green shades here would start pulsating, letting you know where there's motion within that building, making it easy for law enforcement to be able to kind of determine where an active shooter might be in that example. From here, we're going to click into a camera. Now with Verkada, there's all sorts of bells and whistles, but the 3 things I really want to focus on today is really the 3 things that our customers love most about Verkada, and it's the ease of use, and on the following 3 things: finding footage, saving footage, and sending that footage out. We want to make sure those things are really easy to do, so I'm going to take you through a couple examples right now of how we can go through finding some clips, saving them, as well as sending them out. Let's kind of scroll through here. Now, like I said, we store all the footage on the camera itself. So if I want to see something that happened yesterday or over the last 30 days, it's as easy as just scrolling down below here, and I can see everything that's taken place over the last 30 days. Each one of these thumbnails represents 24 hours of time. You can't see this over the Zoom, but all I'm doing is hovering my mouse from left to right. I don't have to click anything. I'm simply just hovering, and I'm panning through all the events that took place throughout that day. The blue lines at the bottom are letting you know when there was some sort of activity, so you can kind of speed through areas where there's nothing going on. And when it's a person, we're going to put a green bounding box around them. And if it's a vehicle, we're going to put yellow bounding boxes around them. And I'll show you why in just a second. Excuse me. Now, we can also change these thumbnails to different durations of time. So The default is 24 hours, but we can change this down to whatever makes the most sense for what you're looking into. Maybe we want to change it to 1 hour. We know something happened between 4 and 5 a.m. So instead of going through a 24-hour chunk of time, we can now go through the 1 hour chunk of time that we knew something actually took place. We can see here between 5 and 6, looks like there's only one event that took place, and I can quickly scroll through, and we can see that it looks like it's an individual walking past the front doors of our office. So that's one way of finding footage. Let's take you through a couple more here. Let's do a motion search. Let's say that somebody walked through this glass window and stole a whole bunch of expensive equipment out of our office early this morning. What I could do here is I could actually highlight the area that that individual gained entry into our building. And I can also filter for people. Typically, this plant's always blowing in the wind, and I wouldn't want to waste your time looking at pieces of footage of a plant blowing. We'd only want to see footage that's relevant, that's an actual person walking by. Now, the Wi-Fi in the room that I'm in today is not great. Bear with me here as these load. But as you can see here, what we see down below is historically, anytime we see motion in that highlighted blue area, that was motion by a person. Okay. We can also filter for vehicles. In this scene, obviously we won't do that. Hopefully there's no vehicles driving into the building, but you can differentiate between people and vehicles when you're doing those motion searches. Now we can get a step further. Maybe I just want to see every single person that's come and gone in front of this camera. All I have to do is toggle over to people. And when we do that, when we scroll down below, you'll notice historically it's going to start showing us every single person that's walked in front of this camera. Okay. It's also going to start grouping faces together. Now, I just want to note this isn't any sort of facial recognition. This is facial detection. So it's not using information from a database. It's just picking up on information that from people walking on public streets. So as it sees my face and then sees my face again tomorrow, the camera's smart enough to recognize that I'm the same person, and it'll start grouping me together. So we could toggle over for faces. Let's kind of scroll through here. Sorry, these are a little bit blurry. Like I said, my Wi-Fi is not great, but let's just kind of click into one. Maybe I see this individual and I want to know if this is the first time I'm seeing him on one of my cameras or if this is someone that's coming back every day. I click into his face. The Verkada system is going to automatically start cross-referencing all of our cameras for any time that it's seen this individual. As you can see here, it's pulling the last 4 times that we've seen him. Maybe I want to be notified the next person this guy comes back, or excuse me, the next time this guy comes back. It's as easy as going in here, creating a profile. Let's just do POI for person of interest. And then we could hit create. And what would happen there is anytime this individual is seen on any one of our cameras, an alert will get populated, letting you know that a person of interest is just picked up on. It'll also trigger your events tab right here. I'm sorry, bear with me here. Alrighty, sorry, 1 second. Wi-Fi is just kicking me off. Okay, so like I was saying, anytime any sort of event gets populated, it's going to also get populated to this events tab. So as we kind of scroll down here, you'll see all the different events that are getting notified at our headquarters, whether it's a motion alert, whether it's a crowd, of interest, really name it. You're able to click into that particular event notification, and then you'll be able to have the course to go as well. Let's take one more lighting footage here. Now bear with me, I'm going to kind of do this on the fly. Let's use this box here it's like in the hall of our office that this package got here. Maybe it's a suspicious box that somebody left, and I want to know exactly who dropped it off and how long it's been sitting there. So what we could do in this situation is let's change this down to 1 hour clips. Oops, excuse me here. And pretty much, if you know down below, seeing the box in all of these different thumbnails. And I'm pretty much looking for the first thumbnail where I don't see the box. And you'll notice that the box is in all of these thumbnails until we get all the way down here to this 11 a.m. box, which is on, looks like 11 a.m. yesterday. So that lets me know that this box arrived between 11 and 12 a.m.
Matt, we asked Evan to stop just a
quickly and
moment.
Evan, hold on a second.
Place.
Evan, hold on a second.
And just like that.
Yeah,
There
I
we
think-
go.
So Evan, you've done a great job, and I can tell you're like me, you're very excited about this product. But we have a couple commissioners, I think, that are prepared to go ahead and make a motion right now. So I did want to appreciate your energy. I know you can go on for several more minutes, but we have a lot of work to do today, and I don't want to delay progress if we have people in agreement. So I heard Commissioner Tillman make a motion to approve, and I heard Commissioner Lucas make a second. We have any other discussion on this particular item? Commissioner Howell?
Is facial recognition part of this or not?
It is not.
It's facial detection. What he mentioned earlier is that facial recognition is a particular individual identified by name and other type of identifying factors. This is recognition. So if it sees a person that looks like yourself, it would keep a bank on that. So if you saw your face again in that area, it would put it up.
So if I walk down the same path every day, it would start recognizing.
It would.
Yeah, so that's.
It wouldn't connect you to any kind of database or anything like that, but it would start recognizing it's the same individual.
Right.
But it would not, so it's not technically facial
Well,
recognition.
since they're not tied together, I mean, I understand that it wouldn't be like you would have at a business or something, but at least it does do some recognition. That's it. That's my only question.
Thank you. Commissioner Watkins?
I got another question, but just out of curiosity, is there a module of some sort that links it or has the ability to link the detection to the NCIC or something like that?
No, there is not. So
Okay.
the way that would work is, and I've seen it work, Fort Valley had an incident on their campus, and they sent that individual over to Sergeant Santel Smith at Bibb County Sheriff's, and then he sent it off to GCIC and was actually, at the time, doing a trial of facial recognition here, and he was able to identify the individual and then send them the results back.
What it can do, Commissioner Watkins, though, if you had a missing child, if you had a 4 or 5-year-old child that got lost or was missing, you could actually upload a picture of that child, and it will tell you where that child is at or where the child went to. So if you got one that was lost and you couldn't find for a while, you could put that out there, and anywhere that child's been in front of the camera, it could locate the time, place that the child was at.
If it was already a built-in grouping of the child, assuming. Okay,
Based on the picture that
interesting,
you did.
interesting. But you could red flag a person internally from the system.
Correct.
That's, again, fascinating use of technology and a lot to process. But we're here now. I was just curious. It's noticeable to me that the sheriff's office isn't present today. And also the money is coming from the school zone cameras.
That's correct.
Which is another interesting conversation maybe we'll have at some point. But I assume that the management of this will be housed in the sheriff's office?
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the sheriff fully supports this. We didn't see any need to bring the sheriff today as far as a demonstration, and he certainly we've been working with Centel on every part of this, who's the criminal analyst. So it's housed there. The school zone is for public safety. This is definitely a public safety a use of that, and I can't think of any better use. So it's and you'll see in the money that we collected on the cameras later on in our agenda today, and this falls within that amount of money.
Is
So,
this half the money we've collected, the total sum of it to this point? A projection
well,
of
according
what
to the
we will
material,
collect?
according to the materials we sent you, it shows a $758,000 checks sent to Macon-Bibb County over the 2022, and this is a lion's share of that product. So that's why we sent it to you as a revenue, because when we did our budget last year, we didn't anticipate any particular amount of revenue coming in. So now we're recognizing that revenue today, and this is an additional expense we also did not anticipate. So that's in there. Commissioner Wynn?
Just a short question. Based on what happened at Michigan State University last night, I think that cameras and anything we can use to deter crime would be helpful. These Star Wars-looking cameras that you have, it says the images are saved on the camera, but it's also saved on the cloud. Is that my understanding?
No, well, yes and no. So it's saved on the device for 30 days, And then anything you want to save longer, you would push up and archive to the cloud.
Okay, so what if the camera's destroyed during that first 30 days? Are the images that are on there lost?
They would be, but if there's an incident where that camera is being, if somebody's messing with the camera or tries to break the camera, it automatically uploads to the cloud.
Everything up until that
Correct.
point?
It does a bulk upload.
Well, that's a little bit of a concern that we lose images if cameras went down, but anyway.
Well, today in a traditional system, the number one way of losing footage is when the NVR or DVR goes down. And as soon as that's down, you don't know it's down. And then when you go to retrieve footage, it's gone. So at least this way, if something's wrong with the camera and it's offline, you get an alert right away, so you know the camera's offline. Or if somebody tampers with the camera, you get an alert. So it's proactively letting you know that there's an issue, so that you don't run into that problem where, the MVR was down and all of a sudden you don't have footage.
So we get that alert pretty quickly?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Ware. At this time, we do have a motion and a second. If there's no further questions, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. And let me make sure that I read this resolution. This was a presentation, but we went ahead and got to B, which is a resolution of Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing the purchase of multi-sensor domes, camera equipment from AdaptiveSolve, Inc., to be installed in downtown Macon, Carolyn Creighton Park, and along the Riverwalk in the amount not to exceed $700,000 to be paid from the sponsored programs, i.e. school zone cameras. That was the motion that Commissioner Tillman made and seconded by Commissioner Lucas. We had a motion. All in favor of that was aye, and opposed nay. No nays. That motion passes unanimously. Be sent to consent agenda next Tuesday. Commissioner Walker, did you have a question, sir?
Yeah, just a little bit on, I guess, the timeline for installation. And I think earlier there might have been a mention of local participation in that installation process. If you could just expand on that a little bit.
Sure. So traditionally, it's a 4 to 6 week lead time to get it started. The only thing we would have to wait on would be switches and IT type stuff. So that would be the only delay in getting started there. And then we are looking at potentially partnering with a local resource to help get the installation done as quickly as possible. And that, I'd like to clarify with the company, make sure we're going to use them before we name them. But yeah, that's something I can definitely share with Mayor Miller.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I know that you've been a lot of hard work behind this. We didn't complete the Evans presentation today, so I know he could go on and on and on. What you would have saw is cars drive up, bicycle was there, all of a sudden it's not there. We traced it back in time, so there's a lot of good information there. We 100% support our public safety here, and I think this commissioner has voted very strongly on every issue, most every issue anyway, to support them and give them the tools that they need. We're all short-staffed all across the United States, and this is just another way to kind of help fill some of those gaps. Has shown to be the best practices that we've been able to see, and I think it's going to work well with the flock cameras that we have here, and it's going to send a clear message that if somebody does commit a crime, they will be caught, and I think this is an excellent way to do that. Thank you for coming here, driving here from Atlanta to do that. Thank you, Evan, for getting on early this morning where he's at to do this presentation today, and we'll have this on our consent agenda for next Tuesday. You would not need to be here, but you certainly can watch that online like everyone else.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time today. We look forward to working with y'all.
Thank you, and commissioners, you will get if you haven't already received an email, Ms. Ross has sent an email of the PowerPoint earlier, so you can have that in reference if any constituents have any questions for you. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
We're going to move on to presentation of roads. We do not have lunch today, just to let you know. But that's fine. You got some donuts that Ms. Wynn brought you. But we're going to do the presentation of the roads in Macon-Bibb County. This is kind of a look back. And just for basic information, I'll give you some information, and we'll have county manager give you some information. And then we do have our staff here, our engineers, and everyone here today, and Ms. Barber from the GIS mapping, if necessary, to give you some information, additional information. But roads, we have about 1,100 miles of road in Macon-Bibb County. Previously, there's been about 9.9 as an average amount of roads that's being paved. As you can imagine, doing that many roads per year, the way we're doing those, you're not going to make a big dent in someone's lifetime getting those roads repairs. And this does not include the state and highways. That 1,100 is just purely county roads that we're responsible for. The average cost is anywhere from $330,000 to $400,000, roughly in that ballpark per mile to get done. Also, as a reminder that you understand, when we had this robotic system that went throughout our whole county and mapped every single road, they look for spots and give you grades. So, for instance, you may have a long road and you may have part of that road may be a 5, and other parts may be a 2 or 3. But you don't just pave the middle of that road. You have to go from typically for the pricing from intersection to intersection is what they call it. So you can't just look at the 0.5 miles. It may be 0.8 or a mile when you do these paving. So it's not an exact science. The last time we had a work session here, we were in the back and we went through all the roads in Macon and how we wanted to kind of get those done. The average road in Macon is 2.7. If you go from 0 to 5, and I guess 1 to 5, 1 being the very best road, 5 being the very worst road, Macon is 2.7, which is better than most middle Georgia. To be honest with you, when people talk about our roads, they don't understand that they're actually better than some of our neighbors. They just don't complain as much. But we also have to realize that we have to do a better job, and that's what this is about. The plan that we're looking to present to you today kind of gives you a look back, but also moving forward. 9.9 miles per year is not acceptable. We typically get, as you may know, through the LMIG, a certain amount of money, but Macon-Bibb County ourselves in the past has only spent, on an average, as part of our contribution, anywhere from about $550,000 to $700,000 per year for roads, and we used the rest of that with a state match. Our proposal that we presented to you last time was to spend 5 times as much on roads. This is what this does. The LMIG goes through its normal process, and they're going to show you, I think, the 2021, 22, 23, 24 LMIGs today and some proposals. We believe that by the time the LMIG is complete for 2024, that we will have all the 5s and 4s completed on this program. It is going to take some general fund money to do that. And what we're proposing to do is to do our regular LMIG that you approve each and every year with our regular match, and then do an additional $2.5 to $2.8 million on top of that, which gives you the 5 times the 5 to 700,000 we've been spending on roads. This allows us to go from 9 miles per year to about 16 miles per year. And over a 3-year period of time, you're doing about 50 miles of road, but you've knocked out all the 5s and 4s, and then we can start looking back at the system to update the rest of the roads. At the same time, we realize that we may have a SPOS coming up in the near future, which will probably be voted on sometime in 2025. And one plan could be that we take care of all these 5s and 4s and put a significant amount of money in the SPOS that would, more than probably be about 20 times as much roads that we normally pave, and do that out of the SPOS dollars that we can pay for in debt service over a period of time with that 1 penny tax. I think that's something that people could support. But anyway, I just want to let you know that today that we previously went over our other LMIGs. It's already out there for bid. We have another one that we kind of approved this last time, and we're getting ready to approve monies today, and we're going to use the rest of the money out of general fund. So realize that the additional roads that we're talking about paving will be through general fund. So I'm going to turn it over to County Manager Dr. Keith Moffitt for further explanation, and then we'll begin with any other presentation that we need to do.
Again, good morning, Commissioners. The Mayor summed that up very well, and I'm just going to kind of recap how we got to this point. If you recall, we've had this discussion to take politics out of the selection of how we pave our road and actually pave the road based on the data. And if you recall, the data we showed you was we hired a company in 2018 to go in and evaluate the roads, and they did each road in segments. And a segment is X number of feet of the road, and it will be rated anywhere from 1 to 5. From there, you would go and take an average of that road, and that road would be rated. And that's kind of confusing because you may have a road that has a serious 5 in it, but the rest of the road is a 1 or a 2. So that would bring that average road down to somewhere a 3. And so it's kind of hard to say, okay, we don't need to pave that road as opposed to one that's rated higher, because you see that serious part of that road. So we're trying to make sure that we address all the roads that have those significant 5s and 4s. Our goal has been and is at the end of 2024, with the LMIG and the money that we invest for the general fund, to have all roads that have a 4 or 5 rating paved. Now, that may leave some roads out there that have segments, but we will get to that in my explanation. Well, I can say it now. Well, Our goal is to show you the list of general fund roads that we want to invest in 23. And we will talk about the proposal of the LMIG in 24 and the proposal of general fund for 24. So at the end of LMIG 24, we would have paved all roads that are rated a 4 or a 5, and that's the entire road. Next year, in the budget process, we would like to go back out to bid for a company, much like robotics. There are some companies that have contacted us, say they have some little better software and evaluations that we can go out and reassess the roads next year. And so we can start this process again in 2025. We'll have a better feel of where we are and how we can proceed. But as of the last 5 years, we would have paved 75 miles of road. That's significant when we think about up until this year with just doing it via the LMIG, which is our partnership with the state. So we can go into more of the presentation back and forth where we showed you robotics, but the ideal is you tasked us with paving roads based on the data. Now, so let me explain a couple of things that happen in the LMIG process. Once we've gone through the LMIG process and those roads are actually paved and the final costs are put out there, we've had the opportunity to go back and add what we call additive roads. And so in 2021, which are the roads that are being paved right now, they've calculated the cost and we've been able to go back and add, I believe, 5 roads to 21. 22 LMIG is what's out to bid. And so those will be on the street for contractors to bid. So those list of roads will be paved next year. 2023 list has been submitted to GDOT for approval. And so we're waiting on that. You've already approved it from our standpoint, but we want to add $2.5 million to that 23 list. So you have 3 groups of road being worked, physically being worked. 22 LMIG, 23 LMIG is in the process to be bidded out, and then the general fund 23. So I don't want to confuse anybody in that regard, but just know that it's 3 groups of road that we're focused on right now. Next year, it'll be 24 LMIG and 24 general fund. That is our goal. To again accomplish the one statement I want you to take away is that at the end of the 24 LMIG, we would have addressed all the roads that were rated 4 or 5.
At the same time, Dr. Moffitt, just want to be clear before we get into too deep conversation on there, is that you're getting close to capacity for the amount of roads that can be done in a year, as far as the vendors out there and the time that they can put in our roads. The average, I think the average, according to Mr. Brooks, the information we got, is about 9 miles to 10 miles in 4 months. And you basically only have two sets that you can do per year in that time frame. But they have other jobs out there available, even bringing in additional vendors that we typically have 2 that apply to pave in Macon-Bibb County. So, but there's other work being done, infrastructure throughout the state, and it pulls a lot from it. So I think we're pretty aggressive, doing 5 times as much money as we normally spend. But if someone tries to recommend that we do 20 times all at one time, or 10 times and borrow some money to do that, number one, the debt services comes direct out of the general fund, will cost us money to borrow. But number 2, you can see right now, we're just now doing the 21, 22s now, and this is 2023. As far as getting the work done, it's going to lag like that. So we're almost at capacity to get the work done by vendors that are capable of doing the work. And that's just not Bibb County, it's everywhere. We always talk to those similar situated, like I mentioned earlier in the other presentation, with Columbus, with Augusta, with Savannah, and these numbers are not just put out in the air. These are numbers that we get when we go to GMA and ACCG, and we get educated, and we go to these transportation conferences and things like that on just vendors. So just want you to know that we're trying to maximize the use of our money to get these roads. Number 5s and 4s are the biggest ones, and I think that's why we're focusing on those. But I think Commissioner Watkins had a question.
And thank you for that segue. I'm curious. You mentioned that we're trying to get rid of all the 4s and 5s. Totally. I'm glad we're all on the same page. You haven't mentioned yet how many miles of 4s and 5s there are within the.
I brought my GIS analyst who does all the mapping, and she's the quick when we look at the map. 30, based on the robotics data, it was 38 miles of 4s and 5s. But again, that was when you take intersection to intersection, because of the segments of how they calculated it.
I'm sorry. In order to accomplish our goal of paving it, how many miles need to be paved?
It looks like 47.8 roughly on what she's got on the screen now. Yeah, that's intersection to intersection.
47
So-
miles?
Right.
So
About
about-
$16.7 million, and in that 3 years, we're talking about putting about 5 million, a little over 5.5 million each year, and that's how we come up with the number.
And help me out with the 20, like you were just given the schedule, like now, like it's calendar year 2023, but I guess LMIG year is 2021.
Correct. The work.
And
being
so
done
when
now.
is 2020, LMIG 2024 end in calendar years?
That work will be done in 25. It's a year behind.
But let me just say, the good thing about doing the general fund is we don't have to go through all the processes of getting approval with the state when we use our own general fund money. So these other roads, we'll be able to do this at the same time, twice as fast, and get things out to RFP in the market, because we don't have to go through the normal process with the state, because they'll be giving us matching funds. This is directly coming out of our money.
Sure,
for the
sure,
rest of
sure.
it.
So again, so if I'm understanding you correctly, the end of LMIG 24 is December 2025.
All work should be completed. Yes.
December 2025. Okay. And I guess you said, like, do you have available so in between, I guess, 21 and 24, there are 47 miles of roads. Like the one that I'm voting
Yes.
for the one that I'm voting for today has how many miles of road, and if you knew previously for the one that we did in 21, 22, and I guess 21 and 22 are 100% made up of 4s and 5s?
Yes, we went back and changed that. Well, no, we because you recall in the LMIG, we agreed, the body agreed to add a couple of roads in there under the economic development. That was Joe Tamplin and Presidential Parkway.
Okay,
So that was included in that list.
Is it a fair question to ask for each of those years how many 4s and 5s are in miles of 4s and 5s are in the list? I'm sure it comes out to 47 miles, but
Close, yes. That's fair. That's more than fair, and that was our goal. So yes.
So do you know for 23, I guess, how many miles are in that?
16 point whatever is on the
16?
screen just
Okay.
a moment ago.
So yeah, I screened. Okay.
18.2.
18.2.
And so we'll do 18 miles in 23, and then 24 we'll finish out the remainder. All right.
And then the goal is I want to present in the budget to go back and have another evaluation done. We find a company to do that, and then we can go from there.
All right. And just so I think I understand the timeline, the companies, I mean, the roads that we're voting on today, they would start, I guess, actually getting paved.
As soon as we put the RFP out and get a vendor, and we will go from there. Hopefully it takes 90, 120 days. Hopefully by this summer, the general fund list will start being worked.
Okay.
And then the LMIG list, once we get that back from GDOT approved, we will bid that out, and hopefully that'll start. And that normally is around November. So probably January next year. That's why the LMIG list lags a year behind.
Commissioner Howell, I'll come back to you.
I got a couple, I guess, in the weeds questions here. And I may need your help to answer this. I'm assuming that when we partner with the state with the LMIG money, I'm sure that the state has specific specifications when we're recapping a road. Yes. Is that per
Mr. Brooks,
con-
Mr. Brooks, you might come up to the microphone. If he's going to ask you questions, I want you up there so people at home can hear you. Will you ask Mr. Brooks questions? Okay. If you don't mind.
Yeah,
coming
I'm
up to the
sorry.
mic.
If you,
We may be able to hear you, but people at home need to hear you as well. And
Yeah,
please
yes, sir.
identify
Yeah.
yourself, sir, and tell what
Yep.
you do.
Yeah, my name is Charles Brooks. Yeah, I'm working with the Macon-Bibb County Engineer's Office. And yes, sir, we hold to the GDOT standards for our repaving.
So does TDOT standards on a repaving a road or recapping a road, what's the basic, is it an inch and a quarter, is it 2 inches, what's the?
We are grinding down, usually we grind down an inch and a half, and we repave that inch and a half. Sometimes if it's a ditch road where there's no curb and gutter, we'll analyze that, and we may not grind it, we may just put another inch and a half on top of that.
So let's say that, district out there, we decided we was gonna redo Hartley Bridge Road and, Timber Lane.
Okay.
Hartley Bridge being well-traveled, big trucks, yada, yada. Timber Lane, a subdivision. Are we gonna do both roads? Are we gonna do the same work for both roads, or are we gonna evaluate each particular road?
Well, we would typically do the same work, but like for instance, we're doing Joe Tamplin. We will take a harder look at that. A lot of times there will be more what we call patching in a heavier used road, which they will go out and take out more of the material to be sure it's brought back up to standard. And Hartley Bridge Road would be probably that type of a road we would look at to do that with.
So you basically answered my question. We wouldn't spend as much money resurfacing Timber Ridge as much as we would Hartley Bridge, because obviously it gets less traffic.
That's correct, sir.
Yeah, so I didn't know, sometimes you get caught up in state contracts and they require the same amount of work regardless if it's of the volume of
Yes,
traffic
no.
on it. So
No, we have that leeway to do that, yes, sir.
now, if we take $2.5 million out of general budget, we might have a little more leadway as to the specs on those particular roads.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That will be from this body here as well. In other words, we will not be tied to the GDOT standard. If you don't
so
want
we
to-
could, I guess as a businessman, I'm thinking we use LMIG money on the big roads and maybe drop the standards a little bit, and maybe our dollars go a few more, another extra 2 miles or whatever.
Well, that's possible. That's possible to do that.
Well, when we're talking about $2.5 million of our money, I want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck.
Yes, sir. Right now, though, the numbers you see today are all the same numbers. We're holding to the GDOT standard. With what you see today.
Yeah, and that's where I was getting to.
Yes.
So you answered it, because if we don't have to have GDOT standards, maybe we could, if we don't have to grind it, and if we go to an inch and a quarter, an inch and a quarter on a lot of these neighborhood roads that we're doing would probably be sufficient, and we might stretch, 5 miles, we might get 7.5 miles out of it.
Yes.
But then again, I'm pretty big on pinching them pennies as close as I can. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Commissioner Wynn?
Oh, yes, sir, thank you. Just for clarification, Dr. Moffett, the 2022 roads are out for bid, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So they're not in process and not being done, but they're out for bid to be done perhaps this year?
Correct. They are for bid. Yeah.
They're in the hopper, in the process with procurement right now.
Okay, and then more specific to my district, where does Bass Road fit in this? I know that's a GDOT project for widening of Bass Road and the completion of Forest Hill. How do those two fit into here as far as any of this money?
Those are separate and distinct. We had other SPOS funds designated to that. Our share on that.
Specifically designated to that?
Yes.
So GDOT is more in charge of Bass Road widening. People are asking a lot about that.
Yeah, we got about $550,000 for some work on Bass Road that's on the agenda today. We previously started the process on having Atlas come in and show us the plans before and giving permission for a couple other things that are happening out there. But the state has to let that money, and that comes from a higher source. So we're just doing our part to start working on the right-of-ways and things like that.
Okay. What about Forest Hill?
Forest Hill Road's the same way. We let that project, I think, just not too long ago. We set aside our funds for that project to widen the rest of it from what is that?
Wimbish to up to whatever it was, Vineville, something like that.
And Charles, I'm just gonna keep talking on memory, but if I say something wrong, please stand up.
Well, I mean, those are going to be aggravating when they get it widened. But anyway, it is what it is.
Thank you, Mr. Wynn. Commissioner Wilder?
Yeah, just want to touch base. When we were looking at the 2021 LMIG, we discovered Columbus Road from Tidwell to Knoxville had not been done yet. And it's going to be done in
Now,
the near future.
it was one of the ones that when we had money left over and we added 5 roads, that section was one of the additive roads. And they should start working on it. Within a month, they should start working on it. So that was added to the change order or whatever we did to add it, because we had some extra funds left.
And clearing up on Columbus Road, you and I discussed the other day, and you told me since it was such a long road, it was going to be divided in several different sections, correct?
Correct. We divided Columbus Road into 4 sections.
Okay. And just want to bring one other thing which is similar, but like Knoxville Road and Rogers Road,
Right.
we talked about, they're not really rated at 4s and 5s, but there are a couple of sections in each of those roads that are like terrible.
Correct.
And that we wouldn't necessarily be looking at it, that maybe even do some, maybe it really just needs a better repair in these areas.
And we've talked about that as adding to the in-house budget, that we can go out and take care of those outside of this process to where we would have the funds to do that. So we're going to look at that in the upcoming budget.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilder. Commissioner Lucas?
Yeah, I heard a couple of things. I'm really, really excited about this because over the years we've, submitted streets and just, I now understand why they were never done. But I'm glad to see now that there's a plan to get all of this done. It's very exciting and citizens are very pleased. 2 things. One is with the focus on pedestrian safety, and we're still losing people on our roads. Can we include a piece in this that the Pedestrian Safety Review Board has championed for years and years, and that is where it makes sense, we recommend reducing the speed on some of these. Can we plug that part in? I know there's some money that's been put in the budget this time for only the second time, I guess, in history. Last year, 100,000. This year, 500,000. And so that shows a focus on pedestrian safety. So while we're talking about roads, then of course I know the state has kind of shifted a little bit toward greater safety in the projects that they have. And I think since we as a commission have adopted Complete Streets and Vision Zero, we need to review that, and everybody needs to get on the same page as to make sure that we're incorporating all of these things. And one final thing, there are some streets that were resurfaced in the past that were not done correctly. And I've asked over the years, who gave the go-ahead, who put their stamp of approval on it, because depending on where the paving has taken place, it just doesn't look right. There are lumps and bumps and places where the cement has caved. I mean, there are these kinds of things in certain sections of our community. And I think this is an opportunity to fix that, to do everybody's street right.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you don't have to, and then what he was talking about, there are some streets that you can mill it down, grind it down lower than some other streets. I think we ought to look at uniformity in as many of these projects as we possibly can. And then in years to come, people will be able to say, well, I supported the SPLOST to get this stuff done, and now my streets look like the streets everywhere else, and they're as safe.
Yes, ma'am.
So can you talk just a minute, or maybe the engineer can talk about the approval process? Surely we have to take possession of these streets once they're completed? What's the process that you go through in saying, okay, this is all right? And I know you haven't been there all your life, but somebody made some decisions that in this area, those streets don't need to need to look as nice as these over here, or they don't last as long. So what's that process?
Well, for new roads, that's a completely different process, but we're not talking about new roads here. We're talking about resurfacing our roads. In the past, we didn't really have as good a plan as we do now for the severity of our roads that we select. I'm not aware of any of the pavement that was done, and it was done poorly. I'm not aware of that. But I'm sure there's probably some out there, but I'm not aware.
Yeah, you ride the streets. You said you rode all the streets, right?
Well, I've ridden lots of streets.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. But now we have a plan and a process to select, the roads in a more proper way, in a more fair way, and a more way to benefit all of Bibb County, and to try to hit the worst roads, at one time. Now, yes, ma'am. And the 4s and 5s are going to be about 40% of our roads. When we get that done, of the worst roads.
Mm-hmm. What do you look at? I know I'm not into the cement business and all of that, but what are a couple of things that you look for just as an engineer? And I know we've got a traffic engineer too, but when you go out to a street that's supposed to be finished, what do you look for?
We ride the road. We look for the smoothness of it. We check the depth of the asphalt that's put down, to be sure they're doing it right. On a road that's severely damaged, where they do a lot of patching, we investigate all of the patch work that's done as well.
Okay.
Sometimes it just happens that even when you do a road, there's a bad spot that just wasn't caught. It could be bad base material under there that's just not caught, and sometimes they'll take a better reclamation to get that done. And that's just sometimes that just happens.
I'm glad to know that there are new procedures, and that we're all looking at complete streets, pedestrian safety, pedestrian access, handicap accessibility, all of that kind of stuff has to be taken into account. And this is an opportunity that I've never seen all at one time to do all of these things. And I think we would be smart if we're asking citizens to approve another SPLOST, which I certainly am in favor of, that we do it right. We go ahead, get the money we need, and do folks' streets right.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Face to face, we plan to have your Christmas present. those sidewalks. You see his face this year.
That I am just so happy, because those folks are tired of falling in the ditch.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So you see it.
Thank you.
That's the commitment.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Commissioner Tillman?
Yes, sir. I was told last summer by both of you that starting in September of 2022, that we'll start the process on Hollandworth Road that's fully funded, and it is 2023, February, and there's no work.
Sir, well, we're going to add the Hollingsworth Road to this year's three major sidewalk projects, and yours is going to be one of them. So it'll be done by December this year.
He said he's going to start the process. He didn't say he's going to complete it.
Well,
So he started the process.
But in all fairness, you are absolutely correct. We were looking at doing that sidewalk with the paving of that road to save money with the contractor, and it has gone through the process, but we are moving forward. But you are correct, sir.
Can you write that down? Al was correct today.
I tell him that all the time.
No, don't say we never told you that. Commissioner Howell. Commissioner Howell.
Okay, I got 3 more questions or comments, and again, usually I don't get into the weeds when we're talking about something. I try to stay on point, but this is all related. In 1980, in another life, I worked on I-75, and I pushed a profilometer down the road after we got through grinding it. Do we own similar equipment nowadays that would go back and check behind a contractor when he got through as far as smoothness and that kind of stuff?
We do not have.
We don't.
That would be something Public Works would have, and we do not have that kind of equipment. That's.
Well, I'm just saying, if we're gonna be the inspectors on these jobs, we need something other than, in my opinion, something other than just, yeah, it looks good, cause it can look good, but it might not be smooth. That's just a thought that maybe it's a Public Works thing, whatever, but I think that if we're gonna be an inspector of the road, I think we need to do more than just look at it.
Yes, sir.
Number two, I would encourage all of my fellow commissioners and the public that the one thing that hadn't been mentioned today that I think is on the horizon is some infrastructure money that'll be coming, and we need to be in touch with our folks in Washington to make sure that our voice is heard, that we want some of that in Macon, Georgia for roads. The third thing, and this is kind of related, kind of not. I ride down Goodall Mill Road 3 or 4 times a week. In general, Goodall Mill Road is in pretty decent shape, but the trucks could use that road a pretty good bit, and they're just wearing it out with potholes, which brings me to my third point. I appreciate everything that Tim Wilder and Public Works does, but it is obvious to me that they are ill-equipped to repair potholes. And I don't blame that on Tim Wilder, I blame that on us for not having the right equipment there. You know, I'm sorry, but coal patch material thrown in a hole is not a repair for a pothole that's gonna last. And I believe that as a commission, if we got money to spend on everything else we spend money on, let's invest. I know last year or 2 years ago, I heard about we were looking at a piece of equipment that would cut a hole in the in the asphalt, replace it, pack it, do everything and make it right. And I hope that piece of equipment's coming, but I hadn't seen that piece of equipment. And I know it's embarrassing, it's absolutely embarrassing for me to call for a patch, Tim and them get out there and do the work. It looks, they've patched the hole, but I could have done the same thing with patch material from Lowe's. And that's probably, I don't know if that's what they're using, but we have to look at a better job of fixing potholes. I think if we fix some potholes on the front side, it would be preventive maintenance for, instead of having to pave a whole mile of road, we could fix 3 or 4 potholes and maybe get another 5 years out of the road without so much problem.
Well,
and
yes,
I'll
sir.
hush.
Well, no, but you've given us 2 things for my follow-up conversation with engineering as far as our scope of service. Do we need to stick to the GDOT standard on the roads that we do in-house? I think that's a very fair question. If we can minimize that a little bit, we can stretch the dollars. I think that's something we need to look at, and I will continue the conversation with them about our pothole repair capabilities. So those 2 items will definitely be in the discussion in the next week.
I think we have to receive that machine in. I think the one thing we've been looking at, and it may come to commission in the near future, but is this something we can do in-house, or we need to contract out someone that's professional that does it on a regular basis and not asking someone to be a jack of all trades. I think the new equipment, when properly trained, will do its job, and that's why we invested the money in it the last time and finally got the equipment in. But at some point in time, on the front end, if you do that work, it will save you money on the back end. And sometimes, potholes are just not going to be fixed in a certain time of year, and because of the stormwater and all these other types of things. But I do agree that we may have to consider doing some contract services and having professionals do it on a regular basis. The problem with that, and we need to migrate through procurement as, because most of those jobs, when you do it on a regular basis, is going to exceed the authority we have. So we'll be bringing every single item back to commission. So it's something that we're exploring through procurement and our attorneys to figure out how we can do that without having to come back to you for every single pothole project that exceeds $50,000.
Right.
Over a period when you have a list there. So thank you for that information, Commissioner Howell. And we have another question, Commissioner Watkins.
I originally hit my light to support Commissioner Lucas's statements. It seemed like y'all were a little confused at first on some roads that get fixed and still don't look right, but I think Commissioner Howell also did a great job of summing that up. I was strolling through my phone because I guess I think you mentioned it must be a different department. Because I've noticed like on the sidewalk patching jobs that we've been doing over the past year, that it's a very, very rough shot. Like almost, I guess maybe either we don't have the equipment or we don't know how to make sidewalks anymore as a community. I'll send you some pictures if you hadn't seen them yet. But I guess it might go to the equipment that we're using, because it looks like we just. Earlier, you made just following up. You made a comment that the 4s and 5s would cover 40% of the roads, and I didn't quite understand that comment. I was hoping you could follow up or expand on what that's covering.
I think if you look at the total roads outstanding that need to be done, the 4s and 5s are 40% of that. But you got to keep in mind this robotics test
Is
that
the
y'all
remaining 60 then?
1 through 3, 3.5, whatever, 3.9. But
So
I
hold
think
on.
Commissioner Watkins, let me ask a question for you. I think one thing you got to know that is this robotics that was done was some 3 years ago, and those 1s, 2s, and 3s may be 2, 3s, and 4s right now. So that's why Dr. Moffitt said several times in his next budget we're looking at reevaluating all the roads to do on there. But you also have to look at is that we're going intersection to intersection again, and a road that has a 4 on it and the rest of the road is 1 is going to be graded at 1.8 or something. So I'm not sure. We ran some numbers, and I think that's where we got that from Barbara. I'm not sure if she can pull that up right now or not to give a further explanation, but that's what engineering has told us.
And just help me out because earlier I wrote down that Macon-Bibb has 1,100 miles of total road. And then we're talking about almost 50 miles of road when we're talking about what we're working on, the 4s and 5s.
Yes, sir.
And so another 60% would be like what? So what is within this? I guess 60 more miles of road that you're talking about? Are those like 3s or?
All I did was just take 2 divided by 5. Okay, that's 40%, and that was in the robotics survey was started back in 2019. So we've already paved a lot of that already. A lot of that's already gone. We're looking at the remainder of the 4 and 5s now.
Okay, so we've paved 60% of the 4s and 5s already. I'm not understanding you right.
No, I don't know what the percent would be, but we have already paved a lot of the 40% of the 4s and 5s already in the last 3 years.
We've paved 40% of the 4s and 5s already, and we have 60.
Have paved a portion of that 40%.
One more time, the 40% is representing.
40% is 4 and 5. That's two. That's 2 numbers out of 5, which is 40%. That's what.
Okay. I see what you're saying. You're not saying 40% of the roads. You're saying we grade roads on a 1 through 5,
right?
And the grade 4 and 5 make up 40% of the grading
correct.
scale. Within the 4s and 5s, though, like 5% of our roads are graded at a 4 or a 5. Because we're talking about 40 miles of 1,100 or 50 miles of 1,100.
Yeah. Whatever that number is today is the miles of roads that are left based on the survey.
Okay, and I guess my assumption, so when we get through with this, of course, roads are a process of getting worse and worse and deteriorating.
Yes.
But before we get done with the study, before the new study happens, all of our roads would be the worst road in our city would be a grade 3.
That's correct.
And if I'm understanding right, a grade 3 is a very drivable quality experience of riding down the road.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. Yes.
All right. So okay. I misunderstood. Yeah. That's why I asked for clarification on what was meant by the 40%. I didn't think I was understanding it
wrong,
correctly.
So it's kind of my fault.
Yeah. I'm sorry. My last question in this round. Earlier we talked about capacity and vendor capacity. A strong interest. I think we're having increasing local and minority participation. As it relates to this project, do we have any plans to enhance local minority participation?
The plan is for us to reach out and contact other communities who's done the work in their area, and not just other communities, but locally, to make sure that everybody is bidding. The last thing I want is somebody to say, well, I didn't know about it, or I didn't have opportunity, or I bid it in the past, didn't get it. We want to make sure that it's a fair and open process. Everybody knows about it, because now, as I said, we have a lot of work. We're putting it out there to see if we can get vendors for all of it.
So, I guess with our recent history, before asking about minority participation or women-owned businesses, how are we doing with this type of work just on the local? Are we outside of Georgia getting folks to do our cement work, or how's that going?
We have two. You talking about that we use now? We have two companies that's been bidding on it.
Right now, there's two vendors that have been bidding on the jobs in the last 2 years, 3 years. We have been calling around, trying to see who else is out there. We've actually located another vendor in Sparta, but will they come this far? A lot of this is determined on these larger companies have the capability of providing their own asphalt, and a smaller company will have to go to them to buy the asphalt, and so that's a competitor. So it's kind of it's difficult for us to get a lot of these smaller minority businesses to participate. We got Houston Asphalt, which is I think which is owned and operated by Mr. Buckland, I think. They do a lot of work, but they do smaller parking lot jobs and smaller subdivision jobs. I don't know where they get their asphalt from, but when they want to participate in this, they're more than welcome, because we don't exclude anybody. There just happen to be two in the last couple of years that come to the table.
Understood. Out of curiosity for me, because I know capacity and capital size of vendors, when we do this procurement or the way we've done it in the past, is it one contract competition for 18 miles, or is it 18 competitions for 1 mile?
All roads in one package.
Yeah, all the roads are in one package, yes.
So you would need to be a vendor that can do 18 miles.
That's correct, sir.
But we have discussed breaking those up, correct? Between our LMIG and the
That's
regular.
right. Yeah, we have discussed that, yes.
So what is the small, it would strike me that if we were trying to get a vendor who would, maybe they do have asphalt or cement capabilities, but they'd never done a contract like this before, we knew they were small and local, that we may get more willingness. I know it's more work for us in procurement and for you, but I'm curious, what is the smallest denomination you could break it down into?
Well, if it's doing general budget, you can go as small as you want.
Okay.
Yes. But GDOT requires a certain amount, so of the LMIG money, it's a different ballgame with them.
LMIG, it would still need to be a larger slice, but we could, if we wanted to, work out a program that's a mile or two or one. All right, and it sounds like from the mayor, y'all have discussed that, so I think we're...
All options on the table.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes, there are 2 points to Commissioner Howell's point. He's exactly right. The coal patch does not hold up. All you need is one heavy rain. And I talked to Tim Wilder 2 or 3 times a week. Talked to him yesterday. They're aware of that. My understanding is we did get the new machinery, but they have a roller that they needed because they're doing something on Zebulon Road yesterday, was not working, so that was now back in action. So I guess that works in conjunction with the machine. But we received that machinery, right, Dr. Moffitt?
Yes, sir.
I think it's here, and
yes, sir.
they're using it. That's what they tell me. The other question for Mr. Brooks is, because the LMIG actually runs more than a year behind. We all know that from experience. So
yes, a little more, yeah.
And so you're working on the 2021 LMIG currently.
Yeah, they're paving it right now, yes.
And we think that'll be finished by when, roughly?
Well, they're almost finished.
Almost finished with 2021.
We should wrap that up in the next month or two.
Okay. So just for the public to know, we haven't even begun on the 2022.
It's in the hopper right now.
It's in the hopper, so that hadn't even begun. So if we're lucky, in 60 days, it'll begin.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Hall?
One last question for Mr. Brooks. If Bill Howell wanted to start Bill Howell Paving Company, where
No.
would I buy asphalt? I'm curious as to who sells asphalt in the general area these days.
Well, I do know that Reeves Construction has
Construction.
their own asphalt plant, and I'm sure that C.W. Matthews has their own asphalt plant as well. Other than that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, other than that, it'd probably have to come a good ways.
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought, but I was just making sure that my information was correct. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell. We have a ordinance of the Macon-Bibb County Commission to authorize a supplemental appropriation of $2,500,000 from general fund balance to the LMIG account 252.0378 for the purpose of funding road repair and improvement projects across Macon-Bibb County. Can we get a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Wilder, second by Commissioner Jones. I want to let everyone know too, we have Commissioner Paul Bronson is on the phone. He's been on the phone today. He hasn't had to say anything, but just to let you know that he's been on the phone today. We do have a motion and a second. There's no further questions. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, I would like to introduce, you talked very extensively with the engineer, Charles Brooks. We've hired an assistant engineer, Mr. John Hayes, who started about 90 days ago. December the 12th. So you don't see Charles, you'll see John, and then also Barbara Marlin, our GIS. It is my intent to, in the monthly reports, I'm changing it up to use more technology where it's not just a report, it's more of a dashboard. So you can just click on the things that you want to see. So the roads will be a part of that update. So give me about 60 days to get that dashboard up and going where you can go and look and see where the roads are and everything. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. We are 2 hours into our meeting. You want to take a comfort break for about 5 minutes, or y'all want to keep moving? Yes. Okay. We'll do a comfort break for about 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, then we'll come back, move through appropriations with the SPOS guideline change as well as the typical mid-year adjustment, and then we'll get into some lights. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Back on the record. If commissioners don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and move to item 7, which is the street lights A through I. I'd ask to vote on those in block, but I will read the names of the streets for each one of those so folks can know, since I had a previous commissioner get in my ear to ask me that. So items 7A through I will be included together, but A is a request for installation of streetlights along Simmons Street. Item B is the resolution for streetlights approval. These are all approvals along Moncrief Road. Item C is an approval resolution of the Macon-Bibb County Commission approving request for lights on Catherine Drive. Item D is a request for approval for streetlights along Greenleaf Drive. Item E is a resolution and a request for approval on streetlights along Forest Hill Road. And item F is a resolution for approval for streetlights along Eveline Avenue. Item G is approval of streetlights request along Curtis Drive. Item H is an approval of request for installation of additional streetlights along Allen Road. And item I is a resolution for approval of streetlights along Watts Road. At this time, I entertain a motion to vote on those in block for approval. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Clark, second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussions? Commissioner Watkins. Mr. Watkins?
So, yes, sir. Just, I guess, a question kind of on timeline. So, I know we've been approving these, and I'm curious on what is the, I guess, timeline for installation look like, so I can, I guess, better inform citizens. And I guess also what is the timeline? I got a group of folks that I'm kind of trying to track some now. What is the timeline from application to getting here, and then the timeline?
As far as the application getting here, I think it's about 60 days, but I'm not sure how long they're taking to get the work done after we get the information passed. I think it depends on whether it's 1 or 2 lights and whether or not it requires underground or above ground. But our attorney can clear up any inconsistencies there. But about 60 days for an application process to get before you, at least.
Okay.
To go off of that, it is about 60 days from application before it comes to you guys. As far as timeline for installation, a lot of that depends on Georgia Power. We contract with them, they do our installations. So it depends on their personnel and equipment availability. As far as if there's underground or above ground utilities, before it even comes to commission, there have to be above ground utilities. So that is sort of the responsibility of the homeowners association, the neighborhood association.
The first batch or first light that we've passed here, has it been installed? Do we know, or roughly where it is in the process? That give me a gauge on, I guess, the ones coming after it.
Mr. Riles. I do know that one was set to be installed on Callaway Drive, and that one has not been installed yet. It's just across from my house, so.
Okay, yeah, I can wait, but thank you. I know it's a new process, and then you got to order stuff, and light got to come from the ship that's docked on Callaway. I know it's all that type of stuff, but I'm just curious.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. Commissioner Howell?
To follow up on Commissioner Watkins' questions, I've had several lights in my district. One took about 6 months after we approved it to get it done. The subdivision out there, believe it or not, that was underground, they had to put poles and everything up. I guess it was a big enough job that Georgia Power got on it, and within about, I think, 45 days, that whole subdivision has them. However, right around the corner from that subdivision at an intersection that's in dire need of a light, but they got to get power to it. We're working on about 120 days now, and we still can't get an answer. So I don't know that we can nail down what it is, but it's about 60 days from the ones that we've had done, enough out there to get a good measurement on them.
Yeah, I think there's your answer. It depends on Georgia Power and the circumstances of each round of one. Maybe we'll talk to our director after we get a few under our belt to kind of see the average time. But I think it's really going to be on a situation by situation basis. Other questions or comments regarding the lights? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously, and those will be sent to the consent agenda for next Tuesday. Going to pick back up with a appropriations, which is item 4A. This is an ordinance to authorize the appropriations of up to $9,109,836.00 from the 2018 SPOS proceeds as provided herein for the payment of costs related to various capital improvements as set forth herein. Remember, this is something we do every year, and we have a timeline that's set out for the period of time that we expect to do the projects in the SPOS. And every year we get to that particular time on the timeline, we bring that before to appropriate the funds. No projects will be done but for it to come back to commission if there's a project that has to be done and go through our normal procurement process for you to vote on. This is just appropriating the money, so later on we can bring that back. In your packet, there should have been a detailed list of all the, the guideline of all the projects that we're doing in there. And of course, you have a running list that we've sent over a period of years of the projects in the timeline. Sometimes we move those things up in the timeline. Sometimes we move them down the timeline. Has been well publicized, and as you may know, our SPOS collections are ahead of schedule. What we thought were going to take more years to complete and maybe go into 2026, 27, 28, looks like we'll probably go into 2024 ahead of schedule on the SPOS collections, and that's why we've mentioned a couple of times today about a potential of a new renewal of that SPOS in 2025. So at this time, if there's any questions, we'll take questions. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion to approve by Commissioner Jones. We have a second. Second by Commissioner Howell. Discussion, Commissioner Watkins.
Yeah, I know a lot of this is routine, but are there any opportunities here to increase local participation? Or how have we done in the past with these numbers on keeping these dollars in-house?
Yeah, these projects haven't went out for bid yet, so I think there's always an opportunity if we educate folk and they show up to participate. I not know if you specifically about this. A lot of these are public safety items, and I don't know about any local participation in public safety in the public safety arena, but certainly anytime we get a chance to, we want to make sure people are educated in the process.
Are there any projects, or I guess these are large dollar amounts, but they stick out as projects that me or the public should know about?
I don't think there's any projects that you don't know about. I mean, this has been on our timeline for a while.
So I guess more specifically, like when we say, yeah, I mean, nothing is being built or developed as part of a new service offering in this amount of dollars, or like I see the broad roads and bridges categories, public safety, IT upgrades, but how does that transfer into like, are we?
No problem. You have a copy of the timeline with you, or you know the information?
Well, I have the information that's in the resolution.
Right.
And so the bulk of this is there are various line items in the SPOS timeline where we just give money to other organizations every year. Stormwater funds that we give to the Water Authority, Industrial Authority gets $2.5 million a year. We give $865,000 that we split up between the Health Department and River Edge. And so most of this is that money that we're just giving to other organizations. As you mentioned, there are some line items for vehicles for the Sheriff's Office, upgrades for the Fire Department, and upgrades for the IT Department. But at this time, no specific uses have been put to that. And so as far as, once the Fire Department decides, for example, this is the specific upgrade that we want to purchase with our SPOS money for the year, then that's when they put it out to bid and, get a contract, and we come back to y'all to approve that contract.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and be sent to consent agenda. Item B. Item B is an ordinance to make a mid-year budget adjustments to amend the 2023 budget by amending various revenue lines to recognize the increased revenue received, which is an amount of $2,363,115.43, And you got the attachment that shows you where that money come from, and appropriating an additional $3.2 million roughly from the general fund, and appropriating various expense line items to a total amount of $5,610,760. This is very similar to the one we did last year. We took in some additional money last year. I think it was around $4 or $5 million, similar to what we're doing today. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the mid-year adjustments, what we refer to it as. Motion by Commissioner Jones. We have a second. Second by Commissioner Wynn. Question, Commissioner Watkins.
Yes. Could you, when you say general fund 3.2, what are we meaning?
That means that we set out a budget at the beginning of the year, and when we set that budget out, we anticipated receiving a certain amount and then having another amount going out. So after receiving this new amount to the budget, we'll be dipping into our general funds to make that obligation happen. I'll let Ms. Moore further explain if there's any follow-up questions on that.
So how much is in the general fund? I guess is general fund and fund balance the same thing? Like how much is remaining or there currently?
You're looking for the fund balance number, which is we're saying unallocated is about $21 million. So this would come out of that
Okay.
$3 million. I just wanted you to recognize that we had budgeted numbers that really came in a little higher. We had not budgeted the speed camera money, and then you're appropriating those funds. We had budgeted, I think, for I got it right here. The insurance premium tax, we had budgeted $12.3 million, and it really came in 12.8. The pilot that the Industrial Authority gave us, we had budgeted 1.2. It came in at 1.5 and some change. And the pilot from Project Soup, we had not budgeted at all, and you all received that check recently, and that was $817,000. So we just thought it was helpful to put that on the budget. The remaining 3.2 we're saying is from fund balance.
Okay, and I guess, and I think I tracked that on the expenses. And I think earlier I was asking the question on the school zone cameras, the 758. Is that
That's the amount of money collected in 2022.
That's the full amount collected. So I guess it would be 58,000 left from the. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. And just because we didn't start that program until middle of the year, or that's
We
just
started
a few
it
months of collections.
in April.
Okay.
last year.
All right. So 7-8 months. Outside of and I see on the expense section the sponsored programs, which is the cameras. You just the larger items on here, if you could just.
I will say that we've had some repairs needed at the sheriff's office. They've had some real water issues at a couple of their locations. So some of this is that their water bill is up, but they also need to do repairs. That's about $500,000 of the $1 million that they need, and then another $500,000 for inmate care, which we typically do in our mid-year adjustment. They have a guesstimate at the beginning of the year what they think they're going to spend on the inmate health care, and they anticipate another $500,000 to finish out this year. So that's really that $1 million for the sheriff. And then the cameras was big. We have probably the CIP list. We've got a few more things in there that we didn't get in the earlier CIP list. One of that is the security system upgrade within the building. We had kind of two different systems, and one of them went down, so some of the tag readers aren't working, and we need to make that whole. So that's about $127,000. We've got the train building. That's a lovely, lovely place to be, but it needs some stormwater repair out on the side and a little landscaping. So that's one of the larger, $150,000. Solid waste, we've had to deal a lot with cleaning up, and so we had some additional costs within those contract services. One of the things they had to do was really true up the number of trash cans that are truly being picked up. And it was more than we've had, whether that's from growth or some miscalculation previously. They've trued that number up. We've had to hire some other services to make sure we had things cleaning up around the community. We also had opened a couple of convenience centers, so we're adding that money in to cover those expenses.
Break that one down a little bit for me. So that $2 million becomes, because one part, my first assumption that it was landfill closure. And I guess Hofstadter Associates that
That's
are working
really out
at.
of Splost.
That's out of right. So this is more Ryland based and
Ryland
dealing
and
with the
other
day-to-day
contractual
collection.
services and some of our part-time expenses we have for opening up the convenience centers and all of those additional things
And
we've done.
because I see it says tip, I've been a curiosity of mine because I see it says tipping fees, like because the public is dumping trash for free, but eventually someone has to pay for it, which I guess someone is us, right? And that's reflected.
That's
here?
correct.
In that.
Correct.
Yeah, and part of this, we want to remember this is something that won't happen every year. We just didn't know what to expect in the middle of the budget last year because we were having a transition period, we'll call it, between the former provider and the new provider, and a lot of that included yard debris. So I think a lot of this is where we hired several companies to come in and do the yard debris for a period of time that we had to pay for that typically wasn't budgeted because it wasn't part of the fee that we had with the previous company. It is complete. It is with the figure that we use in new company now. So on a regular yearly basis, we'll be able to budget that much more. But that's part of that tipping fees, and of course, we went from about 46,000 cans on the parcel method to a more accurate reflection of the number of cans we have on multiple parcels. So that increased the number as well. And of course, at the time we were going through the transition, we were unaware of the previous methods that was done on calculating the number of cans that we had out there. So I think that's a one and done kind of thing, but we'll know better how to budget next year. But fortunately, we were able to collect the money and have the money for it.
Okay, all that makes sense.
And then the airport, the other large addition you have on that same page is an amount that's reimbursable on the airport that we've got included in there. And the larger ticket item I saw on the first page outside the meeting for the Sheriff's Department is the countywide phone system and repairs that we had off from almost $500,000. So those things we're not anticipating when we do the budget this year, but this is only a minor adjustment in the whole scheme of things looking back several years.
Okay. So no major issues with anything on here. Seems like the cost of doing business for a county our size. But I did want to offer an additional amendment for consideration.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that, Commissioner.
And it's concerning just litter pickup and the illegal dumping cleaning and setting aside some funds to enhance cleaning up illegal dumps and picking up litter alongside of the road to the Public Works Beautification Department, allowing them $500,000 for gig workers, outside contractors, or overtime to, again, just get it done. As I traverse every day, I see a lot of litter that we could get more aggressive about picking up. Just since we having this discussion, I offer it as an amendment.
Thank you, Commissioner Watkins. And I apologize for not bringing that up. I was letting you do that. But Commissioner Watkins would like to amend item 4B, to add $500,000 to contract services to allow for litter pickup. And I'd like to receive a second of that. Out of general fund?
Correct.
Okay. Out of general fund. I got a second from Commissioner Wynn. Any discussion? Hold just a second. This will be just on the amendment. So we have a motion and a second on the amendment. The folks that have their lights on, you want to talk about the amendment? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
I was just curious if we had the labor to do the work if we fund it.
Well, we got contract services. That's a line item we can put it in. So if we don't have that, we will be able to contract that out. Commissioner Jones?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. Unfortunately, we have a culture of people who throw trash out the window. You see it, I see it. My district, all over Bibb County. It's disgusting. And the public thinks, well, we're not cleaning up. But if they, the tonnage figures that Public Works picks up, tons and tons, and the figures that Beautiful Cleaning Commission, whatever it's called, is they pick up a ton as well. But way back I was interested in some cameras that would show who's throwing out the litter. And it's not, they do it in front of my house. And I tell people all the time, well, if everybody just pick up in front of your own home, we'll all look cleaner right there. Because they throw it out in front of my house, your house, I'm sure. And it's not flowing out of the trucks. It's coming from people who regularly throw stuff out the window. I've seen it in the Kroger parking lot on Forsyth Road, and it's an education thing that parents are not teaching their kids, and maybe the parents themselves are throwing it out and they're a bad example. I don't know. but it's disgusting, and I wish we, perhaps maybe this Verkada system, this can do something as far as showing who's littering. You know, the illegal dump sites are bad, and I contacted Dr. Moffitt recently on Bartlett Street, and they cleaned it up, but that came from a contractor who told me about it, and people are just regularly dumping stuff on Bartlett Street, right off of Rolfe Avenue. So I wish we could do something to not only the illegal dumping, but these throwouts out the car windows as people drive around a curve, like on Bowman Boulevard, coming from Wesleyan to Riverside, right there by Piedmont Orthopedic. That's a regular place where you can drive there any time of day. Forest Hill Road is a bad one that I've talked to Public Works about recently, and they pick it up. So they pick it up, but as they will tell you, in 2 weeks later, there it is again. Yeah. There it is again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I will say that we finally had a case where somebody threw litter out, and we had somebody at the right place at the right time and gave them a citation, and you know what happened to the citation?
That's the first one I've ever heard of.
Yes, they didn't show up to court. So, but anyway, we're still working on it. The convenience center has cut down on some things. It's one of my pet peeves, but it's also one of those things that now that you know how proactive we've been, and we have a March 4th cleanup coming up, and keep making it beautiful that everybody will participate in. Now that we've been very proactive about it, it's going to be on your mind more, so you're going to see it more. It's kind of planted in there. There's a road that I travel very often, and there was our Public Works did a cleanup on it, sent me pictures of 60 bags of trash on that road. Now, the government doesn't throw it out. I mean, these are people. These are our citizens here who complain about it, or some of the people who are throwing it out. Mostly in curves and stop signs and late at night, so a lot of these situations happen. But after picking up 60 bags, that's about probably 3 weeks ago, on the way to church this last week, I saw some same trash out there. So yeah. I also like to know where it's coming from. I think that we got a pretty good idea of some of the sources, and that's what we're working on. But I think we're just going to continue doing what we're doing, keep educating, getting into the schools, making the changes we can make, and hopefully one day we don't have to spend all our money picking up behind grown folk. So,
yeah. And that's my point.
Right.
You know,
Commissioner Wilder?
People that are good citizens and conscientious are doing the right thing, but we've got a few hundred or however many that are continue to throw it out.
All right. And Commissioner Wilder?
Yeah, while I was talking about that, I did want to let everyone know I'm getting a lot of positive feedback about our Fulton Mill Road Convenience Center, and I want to mention to Dr. Moffitt to maybe even consider more days if we can work it in the future, you know, than what we're working. We're right now open Thursday to Sunday. Did want to bring up one other thing when you're talking about the cleaning and what you're talking about litter now. If we could possibly consider being more aggressive with cleaning before the cutting starts here in a couple of months, because the tractors and mowers don't do anything but mulch it, mulch the trash, and possibly even consider mentioning to code enforcement, because maybe the sheriffs can't really do it. I see, especially in the rural area, a lot of pickup trucks with unsecure loads and stuff just continually blowing out while they're going down the road. That's one major concern where I see a lot of that happening also. So a few little hints that we could put some emphasis on.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Wilder. Commissioner Watkins?
Just responding to an earlier point, I think there's also an opportunity when we're concerned about the labor shortages. We passed a few months to a year ago, the concept of using gig workers for work like this. Imagining, kids for this summer that are able to go out and pick up trash at some type of system that we create, and we could pay them for it versus it needing to be a large developed contract with a major vendor. Might save us some money on the side and maybe have the latent effect of like doing community pride. Like if I'm picking up the trash, my job is to keep this street clean every day and I live here. Maybe folks become more aware of before they litter in that area. I don't know, it's kind of the pie in the sky thoughts with some of it. But yeah, I yield.
Thank you. All very good comments. We all want to be able to use our money in a more useful way. Like I said, I have to remind you, we picking up behind adults. people who are supposed to be grown folks, and they're teaching their kids how to throw what's left over at Burger King or Wendy's out the window. And it's a constant struggle, and it gets very depressing for people who are out there on the weekends picking up trash on their own time to try to help our community look good, only to see someone do that in the next couple of days. And I don't know about you, but I'd much rather use the $500,000 doing some other more productive thing for our community than doing the trash, but it's a necessary evil, and it's something we have to do for a lot of reasons. Mr. Howell?
Piggybacking on what Commissioner Jones and the mayor said, Pinson Street is a street off of Houston Avenue that's in my district. I believe that was one of the first, if not the first house that we tore down back in the day. And we made a concentrated effort to clean that street up. We've made a concentrated effort to clean it up about 10 times since then. And if you ride down through there today, you can't tell we've been on it. So that being said, I got a question for the county attorney. Can I make a friendly amendment to the amendment?
Well, if the maker of the amendment agrees, that's fine.
So, yeah, see what it is first.
Chicken or the egg? I'm not opposed to the $500,000, but I'd like to take 10% of that, which would be, if my math is right, 50 grand, and use that to buy the appropriate, I know we've been talking about cameras today, but to buy some cameras that maybe code enforcement could use. I mean, we have spent more than $10,000, I know, cleaning up Pinson Street, and it's still a mess. If we had a $5,000, if it's $5,000 for the camera, we'd save ourselves money if we could prosecute some of these folks that are doing it. And I bet you if we prosecuted 3 or 4 of them, we would stop 50% of the stuff. So I guess my friendly amendment would be to use 10% of that money to set aside 50 grand for, and I don't know if it's code enforcement needs to buy them, if we need to buy them, whoever needs to buy them, that the money's there for cameras for cleaning up or prevention of the cleanup.
Okay. Commissioner Watkins, you heard the friendly amendment. Is that something you agree to?
Yes, I do. I've always thought like the deer cameras would be kind of effective in some of these spots, just snapping and finding something. But whatever technology we can come up with, and I guess I'd add to that. So it's just not the cameras, but signage notifying folks of what's happening. You're being watched. This is particularly like those illegal dump cul-de-sacs. That's a
we put those signs up and they dump right beside the sign.
Say that again.
We put those signs up on Pansy and they dump right beside the sign. I mean, but I think the cameras will be another deterrent.
I'm not opposed to that at all. If signage with the sign could be included, with the camera could be included in key areas.
Okay.
Maybe it makes it better, but sure, yes.
We'll have Attorney Groover read the friendly amendment.
So it's not going to be a secondary amendment. It's just going to be one amendment rather than get into the secondary amendment business, which would drive me crazy. So here's what I understand the will of the maker is, subject to approval by the commission on the amendment. The motion is made to amend the fiscal year 2023 budget to amend the revenue lines to add $450,000 to Public Works beautification for enhanced litter and illegal dumping cleaning to be completed by gig workers, outside contractors, and or overtime for county employees, and to add a revenue line to code enforcement. Where would that go?
I offer it might be simpler just to put it all in solid waste at
Okay.
$500,000, and then we'll divvy it out and pay it out.
Okay, is that okay?
That's probably easiest.
Okay. $500,000 in solid waste. Again, is that okay before I state the motion? Okay.
So you're amending the $2 million to 2.5.
Okay. All right. So an additional $500,000 for the solid waste revenue line item for enhanced litter and illegal dumping cleaning to be completed by gig workers, outside contractors, and or overtime county employees, and to add cameras and related infrastructure to assist code enforcement for monitoring various illegal activities. Is that sufficient for the maker? Okay. That's the motion.
Well, specifically, I said 10%, so I don't think you. Up to 10% used for cameras. In other words, it would be up to 50,000 for. Well, I never heard the 50. I heard the 450, but I didn't hear the 50.
Yeah, the total appropriation will be 500. My suggestion, rather than try to micromanage the percentages, is in the motion itself is stated for cameras. And I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, let's just, if you don't mind, let's leave it at that. We put in the motion what it's going to be used for. Is that okay? Okay.
Okay, that's the amended motion. Commissioner Wayne, you got a question regarding the amended motion?
Yeah. I seconded the first motion, which I'm still seconding as it is now. That's fine. I agree with a lot of things what Commissioner Watkins is saying, and I love the idea of the summer program for young people going out there and picking up trash, because it helps learn that you shouldn't do that. And I think that being trashy, and that's what I call it, starts at a young age. So if we teach them younger, just like crime starts at a young age, if we teach them early to pick up trash, maybe that'll pass it on to the other population that are trashy people around Macon. And I'd like us to be classy instead of trashy, you know? So I want to second that, because I think you ride around Macon, and I think about coming off Forsyth Road, going up Napier to Lake Street. I think that's one of the trashiest little sections I've ever seen. And we clean it, and it's like everybody says, in 2 weeks it's full of trash again. So I don't know what to do about that, but start young, maybe that would help. But I second the amendment.
Commissioner Jones?
I like all the conversations. So said camera or said cameras, are they going to be monitored by someone? The only way we're going to change behavior is if somebody gets cited and they go to court and your sentence is something like this: Mr. John Doe, you're going to have to pick up trash for 4 hours for the next 5 days, and somebody from the sheriff's department's going to take you to different streets and pick it up. Then he's going to tell his buddy, you better not do that again, because you're going to have to pick up litter for 20 hours.
Okay.
So I hope the cameras will be monitored, and somebody's going to read them, and they'll do something about it.
Yeah. I think
that's the only way you're going to change behavior.
they need to be more permanent, better cameras. We did try some of the deer cams and other things early on in the process to kind of see if we could do it. We did get some folks on there. It did lead to some success there, but a few of them disappeared, especially on Pinson. We put one there and a couple other places, so we need to make sure that they're on light poles, they're very professional and more reliable. And not that they're going to be watching all day long, because they got better things to do, but when you have an incident of dumping, you can go back and look and see who actually created that situation. So we do have we have a 1 minute amendment now that Attorney Groover has eloquently put forth. And we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of that amendment, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries, and we'll go back to vote on the motion as amended. I need a motion. A motion by Mayor Pro Tem Carp. Get a second. Second by Commissioner Wilder. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll be sent to consent agenda, and as we always do, we speak a lot about trash. So we're going to move on to acceptance and approval of grants. The first one is 5A, Resolution Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing the acceptance of summer 2023 Georgia County Internship Program. We spoke with you about last week and said we bring it today. The total amount is $2,439.60 with a local match of $168 to be paid from Macon Judicial Circuit Public Defender's Summer Internship Program. Can I get a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Tillman. Is that Tillman? Okay. Oh, is it Lucas? Okay. I don't know about that, but okay. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. A motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item B is a resolution authorizing acceptance of a grant from the Office of Justice Programs, and the grant in the amount of $114,536 with no local match to be used by Bibb County Sheriff's Office for explosive ordnance disposal and the Bibb County Adult Felony Drug Court for counseling services. All that information is contained in the package you got, and I think includes some vests and things of that nature. So this is a no local match for $114,000+. We get a motion to approve. Motion by Commissioner Jones. We have a second. Second by Commissioner Howell. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Item 5A is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with Reconda and Associates in the amount of $61,508 to assist the county in updating the airport minimum standards and rules and regulations for the Middle Georgia Regional Airport to be paid from the airport fund. Middle Georgia Regional Professional Services and other line items. We get a motion to approve. Motion by Commissioner. I was been arguing about that for a year. We got a motion by Commissioner Howell. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Wilder. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Our next item on the agenda concerns tiny houses. I see Mr. Cass Hatcher, who's recently been named the director of River Edge. Is that correct? I'll make sure I got my titles correct. Thank you for being here today, sir, and being so patient. Item B is a resolution to authorize the mayor to execute an independent contract agreement with Edge Foundation, Inc., whereby Macon-Bibb County will provide funding under the Home Improvement Partnerships Program in an amount of $900,000 for the construction of 10 tiny houses. All the information, including some designs, has been in your packages. I think certain costs and estimates and square foots are all in there. And Mr. Hatcher, you've done another project like that nearby as well, so we've got a proven track record there. Any questions for Mr. Hatcher before we entertain a motion? Okay. Mr. Watkins.
Just because it's my first time seeing it, and we've been talking about local participation, Edge Inc., that's a new foundation here? Or somebody that's been around for a while that's changed their name, or I forgot?
It's really the River Edge Foundation, and it's been around for a while. It started out as Georgia Behavioral Health, and we changed the name of it.
Okay.
But it's been in existence.
Okay, all right.
So, and then that is a Scribner's error that we will have corrected. It will be the full River Edge Foundation, Inc.
Oh, my bad. Okay. Sorry.
All right. Commissioner Lucas.
While you're up there, you might as well go ahead and remind us what the tiny houses,
For
who they benefit.
yes, about 5 years ago, I think we did 5 tiny houses in East Macon. They were for the homeless and people with disabilities, and so we provide the wraparound services in terms of supportive services to make sure they're stable in their houses. So they're targeted for the homeless and if you have a diagnosed disability. And right now we house about 398 individuals and families in our supportive housing program throughout Macon-Bibb County. And it's just to add additional housing stock for those who are seeking homes.
Can you talk about the services?
Well, we
that
have
folks-
we both provide both clinical case management services in terms of medication assistance, mental health assistance, day programs. We have housing specialists that help them with other resources in terms of trying to get education, job, and food and things of that nature. So I think it's important that the wraparound services are key to allow someone who once was homeless to remain stable in their homes. So we provide those wraparound services for those clients. And also I get the funding for that. So competitively, each year last year I received about $1.9 million in rental assistance and supportive services to provide to those individuals who live in their homes. For example, if someone do not have any income, that grant pays their rent 100%. If they do have income, 30% of their income goes towards their rents, and the rest allow them to live on that income that they have.
Mm-hmm. And what's their responsibility?
Their responsibility is, number one, follow the lease, be good stewards in the neighborhood, and if they're in services, abide by their services, continue to stay on their medication, and seek to stay in recovery.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Commissioner Watkins?
Yes, sir. You piqued my interest with some of your data just then. I'm curious. The parts of our community who are talking about the housing first model and dealing with homelessness. Which
Yes.
let's get everyone sheltered and then start providing the wraparound service. You guys do a great job figuring out what's wrong, but the main priority is to get folks sheltered, get some folks some stability. One of the projects we've been working on is trying to attempt a homeless census, a true count of how many folks are homeless in our community. You guys in that space intimately every day. I think you mentioned that you're servicing 300-ish homes through this type of thing.
Yeah.
What is have you guys done an assessment, the true level of need? What would it take for us to be a true housing first? Everyone has a place to sleep on our roof type community. Like how many
people are out there, you asking?
Yeah.
Well, we continue to do a homeless count now. We're in the process of doing that right now. The numbers fluctuate, of course, but right now I have a waiting list so that people who are on my waiting list. But two things that have to happen because this is a HUD-funded project. They have to be homeless, actually living under a bridge or in a uninhabitable location, and they have to have a diagnosed disability for them to come to my program. There are other housing options for them. That would be public housing, rapid rehousing. And so through the coordinated entry process that is worked out of EOC, a person goes there if they're homeless seeking housing. They determine what's the best housing option for them. If they fall within the category of River Edge in terms of being homeless and having a disability.
Or both. You need to be homeless and have a
have to
disability.
have both, yes.
Okay.
For the permanent supportive housing, you have to have both.
Understood.
For other programs, you do not. And so once they're determined what's the best housing option for that family or individual, then we're referred to from EOC. Right now, we do have a waiting list because there's limited housing stock. So that's why we're asking to build these additional 5. And I'll be coming back to you probably in a couple of months to build an additional 26 that I'm going to target for the elderly, because we're finding out people who are in our programs are starting to age in place. And one of the neat things about the tiny houses is that it provides someone a single place to live. We used to do roommates. We found that wasn't really feasible. So now someone to have a place that they call their own home, and it's based upon feedback we received from the 5 that we've had, that they love that concept of having their own private space to live in.
I'm just following up. How big or what's the total number of folks on your waiting list?
Right now we have about maybe 36 on our waiting list right now. Okay. And they're coming from the shelter, so they either come from the shelter, the Salvation Army, or the resource center. So people who are in those locations, we provide housing for them if they need housing.
To me, 36 seems like a finite number. Like that's
it's continued to grow. It fluctuates. So
what if we were to market our services fully? What would you, or has there been any imagination on what the total universe looks like?
I haven't really thought about what the total universe looks like, so I don't have an answer for you on that one.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Appreciate it. I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Watkins. Commissioner Wynn?
Yes, Cass, you said that you have to be homeless and have a disability.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry, I didn't catch what the disability was.
It could be the mental health or substance abuse. It could be and it could be dual. It could be either one of those.
Okay, and you get that information through going through you
Yes, ma'am.
and your department.
Yeah, we have our psychiatrists and doctors that basically determine what their disability is. We have to verify that with HUD to make sure that that's one of the check marks we have to check on the box to make sure that they do have a diagnosed disability within their records.
Okay, and you keep up with these people to make sure that.
Yes, ma'am. That we have. It's a two-pronged approach. We have clinical case managers who work with them on the clinical side in terms of working with the doctors, medication, and those things. Then we have the housing case managers who basically make sure they're keeping their house safe and clean and sanitary, making sure they're paying their rent on time if they're paying rent, and making sure they're not having anybody illegal living there. Mm-hmm. They're not doing any illegal activities. So basically, kind of good cop, bad cop. The housing specialists are the bad cop, and the clinical case managers are the good cop in terms of working with the clients.
Mm-hmm. Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Yeah, I'd just like to be added as a co-sponsor, please. Thank you for all you do, Mr. Hatcher.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Howell?
Could you send me a copy of the specs on these houses?
Sure.
I'm just curious on the specs.
Yeah, I'll be happy to send you the whole drawings. These are a little bit bigger. The first ones we built was 394 square feet. These are going to be about 600 square feet, a little bit bigger. That's one of the things, the feedback we received back from the residents. I wish it was a little bit bigger, and so we're going to make it a little bit bigger for them.
Appreciate that.
Okay,
and we do have the homeless count out there on the online now, and that expires on March the 2nd.
Okay.
We understand there's multiple counts, a point in time contact. This is a little bit different RFP we have out there. It's been revised and placed back out there. So March the 2nd, we may have our own information on who's going to be conducting that. So thank you for being here. You may want to stay around. I know the next part's going to be you two after we get through with this.
Okay, I will.
We need a motion second. Yes, you do. I need a motion for approval. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. We have a second. Second by Commissioner Jones. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Will be sent to consent agenda. Item C is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a lease renewal with River Edge Behavioral Health for the lease of land at 1219, 1241, and 1283 Reverend J.L. Miles Senior Way for a term of 50 years for the construction and operation of a new crisis stabilization and diagnostic center for River Edge for a rental amount of $20,000 per year for 10 years, then 3% of the assessed property value each year thereafter. You've received all that information and what it encompasses in your packages. And, of course, Mr. Hatcher is here today, and we have our attorneys who's been participating in this process with our team back and forth for a while. So at this time, I entertain a motion for approval of this project. Motion by Commissioner Watkins. Was that Watkins? Watkins, and second by Commissioner Lucas. Okay. Any questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. We've already handled items 7A through I. We'll move on to amending Code of Ordinances. This is an ordinance of the Macon-Bibb County Commission adopting a new section 19-60 within Chapter 19, Article 2, Division 3 of the Code of Ordinances to be known as the Annual Participation Goals for Minority and Small Business Programs. This is co-sponsored by sponsored by Commissioner Watkins, co-sponsored by myself and Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Clark. This time, before we discuss, I'd entertain a motion for approval from you, Commissioner Watkins. Motion by Commissioner Watkins, second by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Discussion regarding this item. Hearing no, okay, Commissioner Watkins.
Yeah, so just to explain it a little bit, this is trying to codify local participation goals of 5% and 25% local vendors. Just noting an intentionality by us to again increase our participation amongst our local vendors and minority, women, and veteran disadvantaged businesses. Not to get too far into the numbers, but we could do a better job, and I think intentionality is a big part of that. Setting a goal here and also coming back and getting reports on our progress on a quarterly basis is also included within here, I believe. And that's really about it. I think the benefits of us increasing these numbers should be obvious to our local economy. Keeping making money, circulating and making. Of course, we won't be able to do 100% local participation. There are still some things that we have to get outside, but there are some opportunities, as we talked about a little earlier, with the roads to intentionally make contracts smaller and other strategies to try to get local folks more involved in our process of purchasing and providing the government with services.
Thank you, Commissioner Watkins. Commissioner Howell?
I read through it, but I'm certainly not an attorney. These are goals, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, this is not a quota, but it's goals, and I think they're realistic goals. And hopefully, we'll provide some quarterly reports to you on information item on committee meetings. A little bit different, probably, from the reports that you get from Dr. Moffitt. It's a work in progress. And then within a one calendar year, we'll have our procurement department and I keep forgetting her name. Sharice, her new last name, will come from small business and do a presentation as well on that. So we would appreciate everyone's support on this if you can. Certainly, it's a worthy goal, not a quota, and I think it shows something to the public if we were unanimous on this. So, Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Yeah, I was actually going to drive home that last point. Reiterate one more time that these are goals. And not a quota, but also just to commend the administration, Commissioner Watkins, everybody sitting at the table and making sure we didn't send something to the commission that wasn't right. There's been a lot of input on this and a lot of collaboration, and I really commend that process. I think it works, and I think there's good policy in front of us today, so thank you all.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Okay. Commissioner Lucas would like to be added as a sponsor. Thank you for supporting that. We'll send that to consent agenda for Tuesday. We have a couple items for property sale and abandonment to address, and do we have a need to go into executive session? Michael, did you need to address anything today? Okay. So item 9A is a resolution of the Macon-Bibb County Commission to authorize the mayor to execute a quitclaim deed in favor of 5 Rivers Investment LLC for the sale of property totaling approximately 7,300 of defunct and abandoned property running through the real property located at 5837 Old Hawkinsville Road for a fair market value of $5,583 and for all other lawful purposes. Anyone need a further explanation on that? So I'll have our attorneys come forward. If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval. Got a motion by Commissioner Howell. We have a second. Second by Commissioner Tillman. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item B is, I believe, a companion item. Resolution of Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing the mayor to close and abandon a portion of Old Hawkinsville and remove such paths from the official road map of Macon-Bibb County for all other lawful purposes. Can I get a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Wynn. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Howell. Any discussion? I'm not sure she had it. We have a hearing on this. This is the one we got a hearing on?
We will, in order to sell any portion of property that is or was part of our roads or right-of-ways, we do have to have a public hearing. So this was accepted as a roadway and maintained by Macon-Bibb County all the way back to 1892, and it is currently defunct. We have not been maintaining it. However, I don't find any evidence in our historical records of a formal abandonment, and we can't just abandon by course of action. So we will have a hearing on the 21st at 5 p.m. to abandon this property and take care of the sale.
Thank you for that information. We do have a motion and second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. At this time, we have no need to go into executive session, and it's right at 12 o'clock, so you enjoy your lunch. And Commissioner Tillman, you have something to answer?
Yeah, a point of personal privilege before we leave out. I just want to thank Rachel Gamble. I'm going to share something with y'all that y'all usually don't know about Rachel. Rachel is a big...
Turn your microphone off. Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Rachel is a huge wrestling fan.
Uh-oh.
And she and I both are WWE fans. Usually after every pay-per-view, we have a conversation sometimes after that. And I just want to thank you for always having that conversation and being a huge wrestling fan. And be blessed in whatever your endeavors are as you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman. I think all of us join Commissioner Tillman in our thanks and appreciation once again for Rachel and all that you do and that smile that you bring. And I'm sure you'll bring it other places as well, but don't be a stranger to Macon. Come back to visit often. Bring your money with you. We'll be happy to take it. So at this time, there's no further business brings us before. We're adjourned until next Tuesday.